ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 1 of the series What If Deku Was Left for Dead and Awaken an Evolving Quirk. So be sure to stick around until the end. And let's get started. We see two energetic green-haired 4-year-olds running desperately into their parents' bedroom. Why, you may ask? Well, Izumi, the younger of the twins, activated her ability. You see, in this world, 80% of the population have a special power unique to them called a quirk, and Izumi just accidentally triggered her quirk when she pushed the door at preschool off its hinges. So their mother booked their quirk assessment. Izumi and Izuku said, "Mom, Dad, wake up, we're going to find out what our quirks are today." Inko said, "Kids, the appointment isn't till 10 a.m. That's Inko looks at her alarm clock, and her face drops into a deadpan. Another 5 hours away, it's 5 a.m. Izumi said, "But we're too excited to sleep." Izuku said, "Yeah, we want to know what our quirks are, so we can become great heroes." Both young kids are bouncing with energy and blinding smiles that could replace the sun. Inko, knowing there was no chance of them going back to sleep, relents. Inko said, "Fine, go get dressed, me, and your dad will start on breakfast." Izuku and Izumi said okay. The two children sprint off out their bedrooms and into their respective rooms to get dressed. All the while, Inko and Tashinori Yagi both dress to head to the kitchen and start on breakfast. Time skip brings us to the quirk doctor's office. Izuku POV. I was nervous that day, but I could tell my sister was worried about her quirk too. I grabbed her hand and looked at her. Izuku said, "Don't worry, Izumi. Your quirk, whatever it is going to be awesome, and you'll be an amazing hero." Izumi smiled back at me. It had seemed to help, but just when I was going to suggest what our quirks are, Recovery Girl had come back. Recovery Girl said, "So, Inko, Izuku, and Izumi, I have goodness and some bad news. So it all boils down to who would like to know first." Before Mom could reply, I immediately said, "Let's hear Izumi's quirk first." I was beaming while saying this. Recovery Girl looked at Mom. It was like they were having a silent conversation with their eyes. Recovery Girl then nods. "Okay, so Izumi's quirk is a combination of your quirk, and Toshi's, it's called telekinetic force. Izumi here has enhanced strength and telekinesis. What's more is she can increase her strength for a time by reinforcing her body with her telekinesis. She won't be able to do that for a while, as that will be extremely strenuous and taxing." I looked at my sister, whose eyes were looking like stars. "Here, that Izumi. That's an amazing quirk. You're going to be super strong." Izumi, to her credit, seemed to still be processing the information as she was just nodding dumbly. RG said, "However, Izuku here appears to be quirkless." I couldn't believe it, and I dropped my All Might figurine. Inko said, "Are you sure, Chiyo?" RG said, "It's hard to say. Honestly, the tests were contradictory, Mom," and Izumi looked at her very confused. But me? I had felt like the world had come crashing down on me. Mom wasn't looking at me, but my sister was hugging my side, trying to snap me out of my state. My eyes were unfocused. I was staring unblinking at a random object in the room. Inko said, "Please explain, Chiyo." RG looked downcast. She hated to give people news like this, especially to kids. "Well, with the x-ray, if you look, he has an extra toe joint, which usually signifies that a person won't develop a quirk." Inko was looking at two x-rays, one labeled Izuku, which had 2 joints in the pinky toe, and another labeled Izumi, which only had 1 joint in the same toe. However, with the blood test, his quirk genes are very erratic, which Eve never seen before. Mom's head shifted quickly to me, but just as quickly turned to RG. "But what does that mean?" RG said, "Honestly, I don't know. It could mean if he has a quirk, it's too powerful for his body, or needs a certain requirement to activate. Or it could be that the body is trying to create a quirk. This is unprecedented in all honesty. So I think unless something happens, it's best to deem him quirkless at least for now." Mom just nodded and thanked RG as we left, but while I was being left behind, I turned and looked at RG, Recovery Girl. "Do you think it's still possible to be a hero if I don't have a quirk then?" RG just looked downcast and sad. "Sorry, Izuku, But I don't know, I'm sorry, it's all down to you. You'll have to put in the effort and work even harder than the rest of them. I looked at her and nodded sadly, thank you, recovery girl. I ran after my mom and sister as to not be left behind. When we were in the car, I didn't say anything, but Mom was praising Izumi for her quirk and how she will be a top pro hero, surpassing Psionic, the number 11 hero, and even All Might, the number 1 hero. When we got home, I just went to my room to cry. I went to my computer and just watched the All Might debut video on repeat. This usually cheered me up and inspired me, but it wasn't working. Tears just kept flowing out my eyes. Izumi POV. After hearing Izuku was quirkless, I was worried about him. I've never seen him look like that. I don't think he heard anything RG said after the word quirkless was said. Suddenly my feet left the floor. Wawa. I was in Dad's arms suddenly. I hadn't seen him approaching because I was worrying about Izuku. Dad was talking, but I hadn't been listening. Sorry, Dad, can you say that again? Toshinori laughs. I asked, are you happy with your quirk? I look at him and smile. Yeah, it's called telekia, Mom. Help, I can't say the word. Inko, the word you're looking for, honey, is telekinetic. Izumi said, yeah, that word, force. I have the same powers as Mom mixed with yours, so I'm strong and can move things with my mind. I can also be stronger by combining my powers when I'm stronger. Toshinori said, that's incredible, Izumi. And what of your brother? At this, my face drops. Recovery girl said he's quirkless, but he might not be. She said some things, but I didn't understand it. Something about he might have a quirk, but maybe not. It was very confusing. Mom thankfully explained for me, and as she did so, I went to check on Izuku. I could hear him sobbing in his room. I knocked and pushed his door open. He was there crying, watching All Might's debut. I went up to him slowly and tried to comfort him by hugging him and letting him cry. However, nothing was working, and he fell asleep crying. I felt bad for him. All he ever wanted was a quirk, and look what happened. After he fell asleep, I asked Mom if I could use her phone to talk to my friends, which she happily did. I called my friends Kakin and Katsumi, along with Shoto and Shoko. Izumi said, do we all know what our quirks are? Shoto and Shoko and Katsuki and Katsumi said yeah, and it's awesome. Izumi said mine's teleki something. Sorry, I'm struggling with that word. Force, I can move things with my mind and have super strength. Katsuki said mine's explosion. I can make explosions from my palms. Shoto and Shoko and Izumi said awesome. Katsumi said mine is full body explosion like Katsuki. I can make explosions, but I can do it anywhere on my body, but they aren't as powerful, but it makes me more nimble and faster. Shoto said half cold, half hot. I have fire on my left side and ice on my right. Shoko said, and am half hot, half cold. It's the mirror of Shoto's. Izumi said our quirks are awesome. Definitely hero quirks. Shoko said, wait, what's Aiza's quirk though? I hesitate at this. We don't know if he has one or not. His test didn't make sense apparently. Everyone said, huh? Izumi said I couldn't make sense of it, but all I understood was currently he's quirkless, but it might develop in the future, but it's not guaranteed. Izumi said, and I know he wants to be a hero, more than anything, but I don't know what to do. What if he remains quirkless? Being a hero is dangerous. I don't want my brother to die. But I know telling him not to be a hero if he doesn't get a quirk won't work, so I don't know what to do. Katsuki said, what if we try and make him scared of quirks? Make him see how dangerous they are. Make him change his mind. And if he gets a quirk, we can help him learn how to use his quirk as a way to apologize for bullying him. If he doesn't get a quirk but gives up on being a hero, we'll apologize and make it up to him. He knows quirks. We could help him with his analyzing. Izumi and Katsumi and Shoko said, I don't know Katsuki and Kakin and Baku. That seems a bit much and harsh. What if we hurt him too badly? Shoto said we'll be careful and hold back our strength so it only hurts and scares him. I think it could work. Izumi said as long as we stop as soon as he stops wanting to be a hero, and if it goes too far, in putting an end to it. Shoko and Katsumi said, I want to use my quirk on Aizu. Katsuki said, then you two stick to verbal bullying. Let the three of us deal with the quirk side of things, like calling him Deku or something. And so we had decided to protect my brother. We were going to bully him. I wasn't happy about it. But if it meant keeping my brother from dying, he'll do whatever it takes, even if it means he hates me. Time skip 2 years later. Izuku POV. I was limping home, holding my shoulder as I walked home. Again. I was taking the long way since I needed to buy medical supplies for the second time this week. It's only Thursday. As I'm limping, I see a man on the beach. This beach was disgusting. In only 3 years, this place went from a pristine, beautiful beach to a junk heap. I stop and watch the man. He was in a fighting stance, but it wasn't one I recognized. As I watch the man punch a fridge, and all I see is it dents significantly. Well, I didn't realize at first, but I was running towards the man, ignoring my aching body's pain. How did you do that? Was that your quirk? The man was stunned as this sparkly-eyed 6-year-old was asking question. He crouched down to be at level with me. It wasn't actually quirkless, but I'm a veteran. I used to serve in the military, and we learned how to fight and take advantage of a person's quirk and use it against them. Of course, there are limits to it. A quirkless like me couldn't take on the likes of a or S-rank strength augmentation villain, but it works well. What about you, kid? What's your quirk? I was staring at the veteran with wonder in his eyes. This man was quirkless like me, and he could do that to a fridge. So, did that mean I could do that eventually? I'm quirkless too, sir. At least we think I am. It's very complicated. The man looked surprised at this. Sure, quirkless wasn't all that impossible, but in the 20% left in the world, most of them were in their 30s or older. This very small child was quirkless too. Sorry, kid, but think you can explain what you mean? I thought for a minute on how to explain it. Then it came to me, the doctor. I went and said it's like my genes are trying to make my quirk, but either it's trying to make a quirk that's too strong for me, or it's trying to create a quirk so I could become a late bloomer or remain quirkless. But I want to become a hero so badly, even if I don't get a quirk. So I was wondering, could teach me how to do what you can do? I look hopeful but shy when asking this, and my head was dropping, knowing I shouldn't get my hopes up, but I'd be okay with that. But I have 2 conditions. I look up confused but determined. Number 1, I want you to tell me exactly why you want to be a hero. I perked up at that. It was an easy question. I want to help people. I want to make people feel safe with a smile. So everyone knows that as long as I'm around, I won't let them come to harm. Just like All Might. The man looked surprised at this, but smiled at my answer. You have a pure heart, young man. I'm Colonel Satoshi, but you can call me Satoshi. But the second condition, I want a family member or an adult you can trust to be around to make sure I don't push you too far, at least till you are older. I think for a second, I could ask my Annie. She's the pro hero Blizzard, and her oldest son may take over when he's in UA. And has time, I can ask her on my way home. Satoshi smiles. Then I'll let you go ask. Here's my contact info, so she can call me and make sure we can make a schedule, and she's okay with it. But kid, I see potential in you. And don't give up on not getting a quirk. I can sense something from you, something incredible, whether it's a quirk or something else. I can't say, but don't give up. He handed me a card with a contact number and email address. I put the card into my bag so I don't lose it. I bowed to Satoshi. Thank you so much, Mr. Satoshi. You're the first to say I have the potential to be a hero, even if I'm quirkless, with the exception of my uncles and aunts that I ran off the beach. I remember about my burns because I started feeling the sting all over my body again, so I stopped by a store on my way. You may ask why I have burns. That's all thanks to my sister's friends Katsuki Bakugo and Shoto Todoroki. My sister and her friends, my ex-friends, have been bullying me and using their quirks on me. Shoko and Katsumi haven't used theirs on me yet, but I'm expecting them to do it eventually. My parents, after a few days, started to forget I existed. I was surviving on my Auntie Ray's cooking and leftovers. I was too skinny. But my parents' attention went all to my sister, praising her for her quirk. I tried to tell them about her bullying, but they had told me to stop lying or to stop getting into fights. They never listened and just assumed I lied for attention. So Eve been doing jobs around the neighborhood just so I could afford bandages and burn cream, since I have to care for myself. After I got my bandages, I walked towards the Todoroki house. I hoping and praying that I wouldn't run into my sister, OT, her friends. But the universe seems to think I'm a joke to it, because as I round the corner to the Todoroki house, I bump into Shoto, Todoroki himself, with his friends surrounding him. As I land on but I wince because of the burns. Shoto said, "Watch where you're going, Deku, or do I need to teach you where you belong again?" Izumi said, "What are you doing here, Deku?" Izuku said, "None of you are business, Izumi." I picked myself up with a bit of effort. Katsuki said, "What did you say, nerd?" Izumi asked you a question, so answer her. Izuku said I did. It's none of your business. Now, leave me alone. I walked past them as quick as I could, so that they didn't have a chance to do anything. But unfortunately, Izumi had other plans. I was dragged back towards them, thanks to the telekinesis part of her quirk. Izumi said, "Don't walk away when we're talking to you, Deku. Now why are you going to Shoto and Shoka's house?" "Izuku, why do you even care?" "It's for personal stuff now. Leave me alone." I don't know why I was standing up to them, but they weren't happy about it. Katsuki grabbed my shoulders and had little explosions popping into my already burned shoulders. I winced, but I didn't make a noise. I wasn't giving them the satisfaction. That was a bad idea, because he pushed me in Shoto, who grabbed my arm and started to freeze it. That's when Shoka grabbed my other arm and started to burn that one too. She had a look on her face I hadn't seen before. It looked conflicted. I don't know why she looked like that. Maybe it was because she's never used her quirk on me before, but the cold was becoming too much and I let out a scream of pain. So to shut me up, Izumi punched me in the gut, causing me to lose all the air in my lungs and unable to scream, only gasping for air. She had another punch ready to go when I heard him. Todoroki, he's 15 right now, about to be in UA, said, "What the hell are you doing?" He was rushing towards us and pushing them all away from me. I still couldn't breathe. I was trying to take in any air I can. Tuya had managed to get them to leave. He helped me up and helped me to the Todoroki house. I love Tuya. He was more family to me than any of my actual family members. He didn't write me off as soon as I was deemed quirkless, temporary or not. He helped me with my injuries whenever he found me with them. Tuya helped to the living room and started to help me with my burns. I could breathe again now, thankfully. "Thank you, Tuya." Tuya said, "You don't need to thank me." "Want to tell me why they started this time?" Izuku said, "Believe it or not, but because I wouldn't tell them why I was coming here, and told them to mind their own business." Tuya stopped what he was doing. He had a look of shock on his face. "You stood up to them? Why? What made you do it?" Izuku said, "For that I kind of need your mom to be here. I was coming to talk to her. I have no issues you being here, as I'm sure you'd rather know what I'll be doing, so you can help whenever you can." He nodded at that. Tuya said, "Let's finish patching you up first then," and that's what he did. He patched me up, cleaning my burns, applying ointment and burn cream, before bandaging me up. Izuku said, "Thanks again, Tuya." He merely smiled and walked off to go get his mother, Rei Todoroki, otherwise known as the number 17 Hero Blizzard. As Tuya returns with Rei, she said, "Izuku, hi. How are you?" Tuya said, "You want to talk to me?" I smiled up at her. "Hey, Annie, Rei." "Yeah." I go into detail about meeting Satoshi on the beach and how he said he would train me so long as someone I trusted was there to supervise us. I could see the apprehensive looks her and Tuya had. "He gave me a card for you to call or email. He said something like so you could talk to him to make a schedule and make sure you're all right with this." Rei said, "I'll definitely make the call if you're sure this is what you want, Izuku. I'm guessing you don't want Inko or Tashinori knowing about this, though." I shook my head. "No. They try putting an end to it and tell me I can't be a hero because I'm quirkless. They've completely ignored that I might be a late bloomer. And if they find out, Izumi will find and..." I catch myself from telling Rei what everyone was doing to me. I see a look in Tuya's eyes. It was understanding, but also disappointment. He always disagreed with my decision to not tell Aunt Rei, Uncle Enji, Uncle Masaru, and Aunt Mitsuki. But he never forced the issue. Rei said, "I'll make the call, and Tuya will pick you up from school tomorrow, so you can come straight here, understand?" Izuku said yes. "Aunt Rei," I took out the card from my bag as she was writing a note. We exchanged the note and card. Turns out she was giving me a note from my teacher to let me out 5 minutes early. This makes me suspicious that she knows what the others are doing to me, but I don't say anything. Rei POV. I saw the looks my eldest son Tuya and my son in all but blood shared. I knew what my kids and their friends were doing to him. I've caught Tuya patching up burns and using his blue flame to melt ice on Izuku more times than I care to count. But I can't really do anything unless I catch them in the act or Izuku tells me. Rei said, "I'll make the call, and Tuya will pick you up from school tomorrow, so you can come straight here. Understand?" He responded by confirming what I said, and I took a sheet of paper and started writing that Izuku was to leave school 5 minutes early tomorrow. Anything to prevent him from suffering more pain. He gave me a piece of card with the name Colonel Satoshi, ex-military written on it. I see an address written on it, and I recognize it. It's a very selective dojo. They only let certain people in there. I knew in that instant that I was to let Izuka be trained by this man. I watched Izuka leave after I gave him a hug goodbye. That's when I turned to Tuya. They did it again, didn't they? All Tuya did was nod his head, then what he said next shocked me. Tuya said, as soon as I can, if that means in 3 years when I leave you, getting him out of that house. If that means I have to adopt him myself, I will. That family is cruel to him. He doesn't deserve any of this. He can't control when and if his quirk will come in. But I think we should let this man, Satoshi, train him. I just stared at Tuya, completely shocked. You really care about him that much that you'd be willing to adopt him? Well, I can't say I agree with letting you do that. But you'll be 18, and I won't be able to stop you. But remember, you will be starting your pro hero career. But I do agree he needs to leave that house. And as for Satoshi, I have every intention of doing so. I recognize the dojo on the card. It's extremely selective, only allowing a maximum of 15 students at a time, and if a student doesn't put in the effort, they are kicked out. I know Izuka will put in the effort. But what's more surprising is that the owner himself has invited him and offering to train him personally from what I can understand. Quirkless or not, Izuku will be a menace to villains with this fighting style under his belt. Tuya looks at me with utter surprise at all this information and then starts typing on his phone to research the address. We sat down to read over all the information. An hour later, my husband, Inji Todoroki, otherwise known as the #2 hero Endeavor, walked through the door. When he saw us looking at a website, he leans in curiously. Hey, honey, what are you and Tuya looking at? He was ruffling Tuya's hair, which he knew annoyed him a little, but to my surprise, Tuya wasn't fazed. He was too busy reading a paragraph on the website. Ray said, Inji, have you heard of the Intensity Dojo? It's that extremely exclusive dojo. Inji said, yeah, I've heard of it. Why? Has Shoto or Shoko been accepted there? Tuya scoffed at that. Actually, Dad, it was Izuku who was accepted. Inji's face went from slack-jawed to a massive smile. That's fantastic. That place would be perfect for him. He's a hard-working kid. ITLL definitely be bulk him up some too. Tuya said that's not all either. Ray said we called the owner Colonel Satoshi. He offered Izuku a place in the dojo personally. He's only ever done that 3 times before. And for the first time since his very first student, he's going to train Izuku personally one-on-one. Inji's face turned into a wicked grin. He's going to be one hell of a hero. Even if he doesn't get a quirk, with training like that, he'll wipe THR floor with Katsuki and Shoto simultaneously. He'll show the world not to mess with the quirkless. That analytical with training like that. Hell, I reckon he could give me a run for my money when he's been trained. And the 3 of us agreed there, and then we'd assist Izuku with any training needs or help whenever he asks us to. Izuku POV. Sensei Satoshi started training me 3 times a week after that day. He had been training me for 4 years since then. Eve toned up significantly, and my stamina has grown exponentially. That's because I took inspiration from the underground hero Erase Your Head. He uses acrobatics and parkour to traverse his patrol routes. So on the days I'm not being trained by Satoshi-sensei, in practicing parkour, Eve become pretty good at it too. The bullying never got better. The opposite, actually. Katsumi started to use a quirk on me too not long after Shoko did. But thanks to my training, I'm becoming more confident. I keep my head up. Eve started using insulting nicknames on my bullies. It's become training for me. They chase me around to attack me with their quirks. Sometimes they catch me, others they don't. I use my parkour to escape. I only use subtle movements as to not show my actual skills. Lately, I've been feeling odd sensations when training, when I'm sparring with Satoshi-sensei or Tuya. I sometimes feel heat or cold in my fists or feet. Sometimes when I'm practicing my parkour, I can feel faster, stronger, more agile, like my perception and sense have turned up to 11. I'm not stupid. With all my hero analysis, Eve deduced it's my quirk trying to manifest and stabilize. I haven't told anyone yet, not till I know what my quirk is. That's not to say my friend and crush Kyokujiro AMD best friend Hitoshi Shinso doesn't know. I help them train in the same combat style I'm learning, and in some of our spars they have felt a scorching heat or an icy chill in a punch or kick I send out. When they asked about it, all I did was say exactly what I thought, that I think my quirk is trying to stabilize and manifest. They know my quirk situation, Am not ashamed of it. I accepted I may be quirkless a long time ago, and I decided that it wasn't going to hold me back. I met Kyoka 2 years ago. She was outside some music shop, and some guys were hitting on her, and she was clearly uncomfortable. I promptly got involved and knocked them out. After that, we ran into each other a few times. We would talk for a while till we eventually exchanged numbers. I have a cheap flip phone that I saved up money for since my deadbeat parents don't do anything for me at this point. We started hanging out more, and then at some point she started training with me. I've helped her with her fighting style and even how to advance her quirk. She's slowly making her own fighting style with her quirk involved. With my help, she figured out who to send put sound waves from her mouth, which she dubbed Banshee's Scream, and send out sound waves from her hands when she plugs her earphone jack earlobes into her bicep, so she can send out punches now with an added sound-based attack. She struggled with that at first. She had to pierce her skin in her bicep or lower neck every time she wanted to do the Banshee Scream or her sound punches, but over time, her body adapted and created aux ports in the places she plugs the jacks in. I met Hitoshi in a similar situation a year later. He was being harassed by some bullies who wanted him to control a store clerk so that they could steal stuff from the shop. He had refused because he didn't want to use his quirk for villainy. They had dragged him down into an alley and were punching the crap out of him. I managed to beat them up into running away, and I took him to hospital. I stayed with him while he was being taken care of. Turned out he was impressed by my fighting style, and both our favorite hero was Erasure Head for similar but different reasons. He asked if I could help him learn to fight, which I agreed to, but I told him he had to gain muscle on his own. These days his physique is similar to mine. I'm stronger, but he's stronger and leaner than he was. He started to learn parkour too. He runs with me, although he can't keep up yet. And in a spar last month, he pulled out a move I wasn't expecting. He almost won that spar because of it. I want to help him with his quirk, but I can't figure out a way to do so. Other than making his control stronger, we figured out my mental fortitude was strong enough for me to break out of his brainwashing. So he has to fight to keep control, Wix, is what we do. I tried looking at our family tree to see if any of my ancestors had a quirk similar to this, so I could try figure it out. I got nowhere, though. Most of my mother's side were different elemental or telekinetic quirks, and my father's side was quirkless or had weak enhancement quirks, which could be what I have. That doesn't explain the weird feelings of heat or cold Eve been getting. Tuya has been helping me train a lot more the past year, now that he's graduated UA. And his Uncle Enji's and Aunt Ray's sidekick, he has more time. It also gives me practice fighting against a person with a quirk. My wins and losses against him lean more in his favor, but lately Eve been closing the gap. My muttering problem is now non-existent. That was swift beaten out of me by Tuya, Uncle Enji, and Satoshi-sensei. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Uncle Enji. Spars with me, he hold back significantly obviously, but he wasn't trying to help my fighting capabilities. He was trying to help my analysis speed, but due to me muttering, he started to beat that out of me. He even took me out to patrol sometimes. I never fought, and I had a special notebook. When he took me out, I had to analyze the quirk of any villain he takes out before he takes out the villain. It was tough, but I got good at it. We only did that for a few months before Ray made us stop. Now let's get on to what is going on today. I'm in my final class, and obviously Izumi, who as we got older, her hair started to develop blonde streaks, throwing out her hair like our father's, and her friend are being cocky about their quirks and how they're going to be top heroes. Honestly, it's getting on my nerves. Izuku said, Oi freezer burn Shoto, half and half Shoko. Blasty Katsumi, blowout Katsuki, and muscle for brains, give a rest, will ya? I think we've heard enough of your bragging. Unfortunately, that was a bad idea. The bell rang at that very moment. As everyone left, they advanced towards my desk. Katsuki said, Oi Deku, who the hell do you think you were talking to? His palms were sparking, and I know what he has in mind. I decide today's the day I show them the fruits of my training. Izuku said, just some arrogant buttholes who think the world revolves around them. I can push the table into them, which gives me enough time to get out the class, but I can hear them chasing me. I smirk at this as I know exactly where I'm going. I run through the city, throwing taunts at them to make them keep chasing me. When I see the alley I'm looking for, I grin like a mad and sprint to the alley. I run up some rubbish in the narrow alley onto a wheelie bin and bounce off the wall and grab the ledge of the window there. I crouch my legs and push the wall onto the other wall and stack climbing up the wall using a drain pipe on the wall. Shoto said, What the hell? Where the F did he learn to do that? Katsuki said, who cares? If Deku can do it, then we can. Anything he can do, we can do better. I looked down to see Katsuki try and copy me, only to see him face plant into the filthy puddles when he failed to catch himself on the window ledge. I laughed at that and finished climbing up to the roof and head to my teaming session with Satoshi-sensei. When I reach the dojo, I enter only to see Satoshi in casual clothes. Sensei, is training canceled today? I didn't see a message from you. Sensei Satoshi just smiled and shook his head. No, young man, your training is finished. I can't teach you anymore. All you can do now is turn what you have learned and make it your own fighting style, especially since I can tell your quirk is starting to come in my jaw drops. Izuku said, but how did you? Satoshi said our last few sessions, I've been noticing odd things in our spars. When you're throwing a punch, I see sparks of red-orange or one of two shaded of blue. And when some of your punches land, I feel a subtle heat, a slight chill, or even a static shock. Even some of your punches and kicks land faster or stronger than normally. Izuku said I've never noticed any sparks, only a weird feeling of strength or speed and flashes of hot or cold in my fists or feet. Satoshi smiles, keep training, young man, and I'm sure you will be an amazing hero. Train your quirk when it fully manifests too, but most of all, make what you have learned here. And make it your own fighting style, like your friends are doing too. I know you've been teaching them. I have watched a few sessions. They don't learn nearly as quickly as you have, but they had the luxury of quirk they could fall back on, unlike you. And I was able to teach you easily due to the similarity of not having a quirk. Izuku said, thank you, sensei, for teaching me. Satoshi said, don't thank me, kid. You deserved it. Now knock them dead. We'll be watching your progress, and I'll definitely be watching you compete in the sports festival in 5 years. I rushed and hugged Satoshi. Izuku said, thank you for believing in me. For believing I could become a hero, he hugged me back. When we broke the hug, I asked Sensei, would it be okay if I came back every once in a while for a spar to test my progress against you? Satoshi said, of course, Izuku. You're always welcome. Now run along. Go take today to rest. I smile widely and bid my goodbye before leaving. I decide to go home and watch any hero fights that happen today, so I can practice my analysis. I enter the house as quietly as possible. Am glad I did, as in cold hear my deadbeat father and mother talking to Izumi, and both sets of twins. I sneak quietly outside the living room. Sony can listen in. Turns out, I turned up halfway in the conversation. Toshinori said, so the secret I wish to show you all is... Izumi said, you're All Might. My dad is All Might. Inko said, and that's not all. I peek through the slightly ajar door and see All Might in my father's clothes and my mother putting on a mask. I am the psychic hero psionic. I cover my mouth to stifle my gasp. Am suddenly overcome with anger. My parents are pro-heroes, and they treated me like I was nothing, like I was less than nothing. I managed to control my anger, so I can continue listening. AM said, Izumi, my quirk isn't a normal quirk. My quirk is called One for All. It is a torch passed down from wielder to wielder, and I have deemed you worthy of being my successor. My anger starts to boil up again. Izumi, who acts like a villain every day, is who he deemed a hero, worthy of such a power. It's not like I want it, but I think that there are a lot more people worthy of such a power. Hell, David's shield daughter Melissa would be perfect, especially since she is actually quirkless. Izumi said, but why not Izuku? He hasn't got a quirk, and he's got the heart of a true hero. This shocked me. What the hell does she think she's doing? AM said, I was thinking about giving Izuku Ofa, but he doesn't show that he is willing to put in the effort. All he does is sit in his room all day or goofs off with the purple-haired young woman. That makes my anger go through the roof. I storm to the door, not Vin, trying to be quiet, and slam the door as hard as I can. Little did I know, I broke the hinges. Katsumi POV. I was listening to All Might, who turned out to be my uncle, and shocked. He just said Izuku slacked off and didn't work hard. Today proved to us that that wasn't the case. Then doorhouse shook as I hear a door slam. Shoko said, Izuku must have heard what you said. And for your information, All Might, I think you're wrong about Izuku not being committed. She ran off, Shoto going with her to try and find Izuku. Katsumi said, as much as I hate to admit it, but Shoko is right. Izuku isn't as lazy and uncommitted as you think. We saw that today. AM looked confused at this. Please explain what you mean, young Bakugo. Katsumi said he managed to climb to the roof of a building. He didn't use the stairs of fire escape or anything. He bounced and grasped a window sill, bounced to the opposite wall, and scaled the wall using a drain pipe. My brother teed to do the same, and face planted immediately. He couldn't grip the window sill, and he tried a few times. AM and Inko looked completely stunned by this. Inko then asked, was it a quirk? I shake my head at this. I don't think so. It looked way too refined for a sudden quirk manifestation, even if he had it for a year. That was way too smoothly done. Izumi said, she's right, Mom. It wasn't a quirk. Even a quirk that could enable wall crawling wouldn't look the way it did. Katsuki said I'm going to go find him. My brother left at that, but I felt uneasy about it. AM said, well, if he accepts, I will train both Izuku and yourself, Izumi, in the next few years to prepare your bodies for one for all, and if I see the commitment, I will let him have a quirk. Inko said, Izumi, I have a question for you, though. It regards Izuku. Izumi said, what is it, Mom? Inko said, have you sensed a fluctuating energy when Izuku is around? Like electricity that's unstable in the air, you should feel something, as it's an aspect of our psychic quirks. Izumi sat there and thought for a moment. Now that you mention it, I have sensed something odd for the past 6 months, but I never really thought about it. She looked at AM and said, you don't think he? AM just shook his head. Can't be possible. If you have only been sensing it for 6 months, then it's happened after I got rid of him. AM said, that is all, Izumi. I think me and your mother should help search for Izuku. Izuku POV. After hearing my father, who is apparently the #1 hero, inspiration to all dismiss my efforts like I'm nothing, I stormed out the house furious, my good mood completely gone. After I made it a significant distance away from the house, I pulled my phone out and called Tuya. Tuya said, hey, little green, what's up? Are you not training today? Izuku said, not now, Tuya. Is it okay if I spend the night at yours tonight? If I go back into that house today, I'm going to punch my father, who I just found out is All Might. Tuya was silent for a moment. Come on over, you sound like you are going to explode and need someone. Izuku said, thanks, Tuya. I hang up and head straight to Tuya's apartment. It's nice considering he's still new and only been a pro for a year. When I arrive at Tuya's place, I barely knock on the door before a woman opens the door. She was tall, had chocolate tan skin, but the most defining features were her bunny tail and ears. My fanboy mode wants to come out, but my anger in my family is overpowering it. Hello, Mirko. Mirko said, I'm not on duty, kid. When I'm in civilian clothing, call me Rumi. So you're Izuku? The kid Tuya is obsessed with? Izuku said, a what? What do you mean obsessed with? Rumi said, crap, I shouldn't said that. Come in, kid, and let him tell you. I follow Rumi into the house. Turned out she moved in a few weeks ago. I knew Tuya had a girlfriend for the past 2 years, but I didn't realize it was the #22 hero, Mirko. As we enter the living space, Tuya is on me in a second and is hugging me. Tell me what happened. And that's what I did. I tell him what happened. I told him how I told the idiots to stop their showboating, how I shorted the fruits of my labor by scaling the alleyway. Rumi looked at me intrigued when I mentioned that and asked if I could show her at a later date, which I agreed to. Then I explained how Satoshi-sensei told me I completed my training and told me to take today off, and to continue training with my friends. And then I told them what was said at the house. Tuya, to his credit, was completely shocked. I was usually good at keeping my emotions in check, especially my anger, but he understood why I was angry. My anger was gone now, having gotten it all off my chest. Then came to the words I never expected him to say. Tuya said, Izuku, Eve wanted to get you out of that house for years now. And Eve been building a case of neglect so that I could get you out of that house. Mom has helped me in some points, and Rumi has, and she hates paperwork. Rumi grumbled at that and mumbled something about important to him, so important to her with her arms crossed. My point is, Izuku, I'm almost there, and if you want, you can live here. I can adopt you, or you can be classed as an orphan, or I can foster you. It's your choice, but I can't see you staying in that house much longer. You're 10 years old, and you literally work to live, because the people who should provide for you don't. I'm speechless at that. I can't even find the words to answer. I'm completely overwhelmed. My anger is completely gone. Can I think about it? This is a big bombshell you just dropped on me. Tuya said, of course, little green. I had no intention of rushing you into a decision. I wouldn't force you into a situation like this, The only time I'd ever do so is if I was left with no choice. I'm feeling tears prick my eyes. It feels weird I haven't cried in years. Rumi is watching me with an analytical gaze. Tuya just hugs me and tells me where I will sleep tonight. I head towards the room so I can think about his offer. Tuya, POV. Tuya said that went better than expected. I'm glad he now knows what I'm doing. It's been hell keeping it from him. Rumi said I bet, but babe, did you not see his hands or his eyes? I looked at her confused. Know what? Rumi said I could have sworn I saw his hands glowed slightly from his palms and saw blue sparks in the corner of his eye. Tuya said that's weird, his quirk hasn't manifested yet. I mean, Satoshi told me he thinks it's coming soon, though. Maybe that's what it is. Rumi said it's possible, but he's going to be crazy strong. All my instincts told me to do was run. This shocked me. The only people I know of that have ever made Rumi feel that way was the top 10 heroes. Me, mom, and dad always did say he was going to be a monster powerhouse. I guess that just proves it. Time skipped to the next day. Izuku POV. I'm in the last class of school, and after the holidays, I'll be in junior high. This gives me a lot of time to train and try to trigger my quirk. I can't wait. I'm so excited to find out what my quirk is. I'm tempted to ask Tuya to see if he could get me an appointment with Recovery Girl again, see if she notices anything different with the quirk genes than before. But today, I'm meeting up with Kyoka and Hitoshi just to relax and have fun. The bell rang, and I started packing my bag as fast as I can, so I could go to our meetup spot. I see my sister and the girls leave before me. I'm guessing Ass might have started her training today. But just my luck, Shoto and Katsuki aren't going with them, and are in fact coming towards me. Katsuki said, "We know you were eavesdropping Deku. Who the F do you think you are?" I could feel the rage emanating off of him, but I don't care. I don't have time to deal with his crap. Izuku said, "I think I was in my own house, and you can't tell me what I can and cannot do in my own home." Katsuki ground his teeth at that. "Let me remind you just where you belong, Deku." He goes to slam his hand and cause the desk to blow up. However, I had other plans and grabbed his wrist. Izuku said, "Enough, Bakugo. Enough with the showboating. Enough with belittling. And as for what I heard yesterday, I don't care. Let us might give Ofa to my sister. I don't want it. He'll be a hero without that prick's power." Katsuki tissed and swung his other hand towards me. I want to grab it, but Shoto grabbed my arm and threw me towards the wall behind my desk. Shoto said, "You're nothing, Deku. I don't know what our sisters see in you, but I won't let them date someone as useless and weak like you." His ice is encasing my wrists and pinning me to the wall like I'm being crucified. Katsuki said, "Pathetic. Deku," he practically spat that nickname that I hate so much. "You're quirkless. Everyone knows that. And I'd rather see you die than get All Might's power. So that's why we're going to leave you here and let you die, or if someone rescues you, you will finally learn that your place is beneath us. It's not like anyone will care if you die anyway." He sends an explosion into my face and then my stomach, and losing consciousness, I could have sworn I heard a few ribs break and the ice is going to go through my skin. I'll lose my hands if I'm stuck here for too long. I can feel warmth trickling down my face and stomach, but I can't do anything. I'm too hurt to focus and my vision is going dark, until all I see is black. Time skip 1.5 hours. Kyoka POV. Me and Shinso are at the Dagoba Municipal Beach. Izuku told us he met his sensei Satoshi here. Although what is odd is he's late. Sure, he's not always on the dot punctual, but if he's running late, he always texts us and is only at most 5 minutes late, but he's half an hour late right now. Shinso looks worried, and I can hear his heart rate speeding up in worry. Something's wrong. He's never this late, and he always informs us if he's running late. He isn't answering any calls either. Kyoka said, "Do you think something maybe happened at school or on his way here?" That was a bad idea to ask, as his heart rate is increasing even more rapidly. That's when I see her, a girl who looks a lot like Izuku, minus the freckles, and has a few streaks of blonde in her hair. She is wearing a training outfit, and there's a tall but skinny blonde man with her, but he is in baggy casual clothes. Kyoka said, "Do you think she is Izuku's sister he mentioned?" I nod towards the pair. Shinso said only one way to find out. He walks over towards them. Knowing who they probably are, I focus my hearing to hear if they lie. "Excuse me, I'm sorry to disturb you. I'm Shinso, Hitoshi. I was wondering if you perhaps are Yagi, is Zuku's sister? Izumi said, yeah, that's me, why? I can see a down look on her face. Did something happen since our last meetup last weekend? No, he would have texted us. Kyoka said, well, he was supposed to meet us here about 30 minutes ago, and even when he's running late, he normally texts us, but he isn't even answering his phone. It's just ringing through, which isn't like him. Even though I'm speaking calmly, internally I'm panicking that he is hurt somewhere. He wouldn't just make plans with us, then not show up. It's just not him. Izumi said sorry, but he's kind of avoiding us at the moment. He didn't speak to us at school. That's where I saw him last. Sorry, she bowed her head to us. I can tell she feels guilty about something. Sure, we know she bullies Izuku, but for what he told us, she always took pleasure in doing so. Shinso said, so you have no clue where he could be? He's getting more worried, I can tell. I look at Shinso. I'm going to call Frozen Blaze, see if he can help look. That's when I walk away. Fumble with phone. I'm scared that my Izuku is hurt. Where did that come from? My Izuku? Not the time. The phone is ringing, and thankfully I can hear Todorokis' voice when he picks up. Miss Jiro, how can I help you? I try to hide the panic, but I already know I'm not doing a good job. Sorry to disturb you, but have you heard from Izuku? FB said no. He stayed at my apartment last night, but he hasn't gone back since he left this morning. Sorry, Miss Jiro, but I will try and find him. Do you know the last place he was seen? Kyoka said according to his sister, school. FB sounds a bit panicked when I said this. I will head to his school and start there. You head to any of yours or his training spots. And if either of us finds him, we contact the other. Kyoka said understood. Thank to Frozen Blaze, we hang up, and I run to Shinso. Frozen Blaze is going to see if he can find him starting from the school. We are. To check our training spots, I'll leave that to you, and he'll check his other training spots. Anyone find him, we contact the other two. I run off before he can answer. I'm heading to the woods. I know he likes to practice his parkour. I look back and see Shinso running in the other direction. The blonde man has a look of panic and concern. I wonder why. I shake my head, not the time. Tuya's POV. After ending the call with Izuku's friend, I immediately flew off as fast as I could towards Izuku's school. Knowing what his sister and both sets of twins are like, I'm worried he's hurt. When I reach the school, all the lights are off, signifying the school is closed. I'm about to leave to follow Izuku's route home, but I have a nagging feeling to check the school. I decide to trust my instincts, and I kick the main door in. I first run to his classroom, thinking that's the best place to check first. When I arrive at the class, I immediately want to throw up at the scene. I take a photo of the scene, not that I want to, but I need it as evidence. He's strung up like a cross pinned by ice, which from the looks of it is tearing through his skin from the sheer cold of it. He's got third-degree burns, his uniform is scorched, he's bleeding from the head. I immediately rush forward and hold a flame next to the ice. I place a finger to my earpiece. Endeavor. Come in, Endeavor. Nothing I can't help but let the panic free in my voice. Dad, I swear to God, I need help. It's Izuku. Endeavor said. Frozen Blaze, I'm here. What's the situation? You sound panicked. Tuya said Izuku needs help. He's bleeding out. His skin is practically peeling away from ice. He's bleeding from the head and stomach. He's unconscious, breathing, but extremely weak. I don't think I can get him to UA. For recovery girl fast enough, I don't know what to do. I can feel tears brimming my eyes. The first ice shackle melts enough for his wrist to come free. I brace him by maneuvering that arm around my shoulder while I work on the other shackle. Endeavor said, I will head to UA. Infirk recovery girl, do you think you can safely get him to the nearest hospital? I'm near hyperventilating now. I can't think straight. I don't know. Not without flying, and I don't want to risk the wind tearing his wounds or making them worse. I'm not fast enough on foot. Wait, I got it. I can hear the wind from Dad's side of the communicator, meaning Dad's rushing to UA, get recovery girl to Mizudafa Hospital. I'll make sure Izuku get there. Got to go. Without waiting for a reply, I end the communication. Holding the earpiece, I say contact Mirko in the time it takes to connect us. The other ice shackle melts his arm free. Now that I can move him freely, I sit him against the wall. Mirko said, Frozen Blaze? Babe? What's up? With a crack in my voice, get to Aldera Elementary School now. As fast as you can. She ended the call after saying that. She knows I'm scared. She doesn't know why, but she knows I'm scared. I'm usually cool and calm, so the fact I'm panicking must be worrying her. I'm guessing she can guess what's got me in this state. Not even 2 minutes later, and I can hear Mirko running through the halls. In here, she slides into the room and sees me. She walks over to us, and as soon as she sees the ice on the walls and the state Izuku isn't, she steps back in horror and gasps. What happened? Is he? Tuya said he's alive barely. I don't know how, but he's alive. You need to rush him to Mizudafa Hospital as fast as you can. Without hesitation, she picks him up in a bridal carry. But before she runs off, I stop her. Hold on, want to minimize anything else getting into the wound. I grab his jacket and tie the arms around his waist and use my eyes to hold the bottom around his chest. I will be right behind you. Go. And she does. She runs as fast as she can out of the school and to the hospital. I take a minute to compose myself, and then I grab my phone and call the Jiro girl. Jiro said, did you find him? She's worried and scared for her friend. I'm glad Izuku managed to find real friends. I won't give her the details, just tell her that he's going to be in hospital. I don't have Shinso's number, so I will have to rely on her to tell him. Tuya said I did find him. He's not in a good spot. He's on his way to Mizudafa Hospital. I hear her sob at that. She really cares for him. I'm heading there now. I'm guessing I'll be seeing you and Shinso there? Kyoka said I'm already on my way. I'm not far. She ends the call on me. She's scared. I don't blame her. I take off running out the school and take off to the sky in the direction of the hospital. It takes about 10 minutes for me to get there, and I see the Jiro girl already sat in the waiting room. A woman with the same earphone jack for earlobes is sat with her, clearly her mother, and a man with long blonde hair. As soon as Jiro sees me, she runs over. They had to take him into the ICU to treat his wounds, but they said something's off despite his wounds. They said something about his wounds should be worse than they are. I think it's his quirk. Her eyes are brimmed with tears, and the Shinso boy who came in after me, I didn't even realize he was there, hugged her, trying to calm her. Tuya said, can you please tell me what you mean about his quirk? Has his quirk activated? If so, why didn't he tell me? Shinso chimed in here as the girl was still crying. Her mother took over trying to calm the girl. Officially, his quirk hasn't manifested, but we've noticed stuff when training, and he's noticed stuff too. It only happens for a second at a time, though, for what he told us. Sometimes he feels several times stronger and faster. We can agree with that statement, since sometimes his strikes in our spars are a lot faster or stronger than his previous strike and strikes after. He has also stated that sometimes he feels his fist heat up or drop to a chilling cold. Me and Kyoka have noticed that sometimes his eyes or fist spark for a second too. He thinks it's his quirk, trying to stabilize and manifest. I think about that for a second, and Rumi said something similar last night, that she saw sparks. Tuya said, thank you, Shinso. You may sit and wait for the others. Are your parents on their way? He nodded slightly and turned to sit with Kyoka. That's when I walk up to them and ask softly, does anyone know where Pro Hero Mirko is? Kyoka said, she's waiting outside the ICUR room. She was sniffling and crying when she said that. So I crouched down in front of her and placed my hand on her shoulder softly, but reassuringly. Tuya said, he's going to be okay. This won't happen again, I swear it. He won't be going to. A school with him again. She nodded at me, and her tears slowed down a bit, knowing I was going to make sure he isn't put in this situation again. I nod and then stand and go through to the ICU area, where I find Rumi and Dad. Dad looked at me and said, I knew it was bad by the sound of your voice, but this is worse than I ever expected. And worse of all, we know who did it. They'll be having words with those two. That was when Tashinori, Inko, and Izumi came blasting down the hall. And both mine and my dad's anger went through the roof. Tuya and Endeavor said, leave, you have no right to be here. They stopped in front of us and looked sorrowful. Tashinori composed himself and said, that's our son in there. We have every right to be here. My anger is getting worse, and I'm trying to calm myself to be respectful to the other hospital residents. I managed to say, with restrained rage, he hasn't been your son for 6 years. Where were you when he came home burned, cut, and with broken bones? You don't even know him. Inko spoke up here with a teary voice. We know our baby boy. Dad chimed in here. Oh, really? Tell us, who has been teaching him how to fight? Who taught a parkour? They don't say anything. Who is his favorite hero? Izumi spoke up, acting like she knows her brother. It always has been me and Dad laugh here. Tuya said 1. You certainly have no right to be here. 2. His favorite hero hasn't been All Might since he was 5. Dad said, you want to know who trained him? He was taught by the owner of the Intensity Dojo. Not only that, he was taught on a personal level by the owner. I help him train on his analysis, so he can do it with seconds of seeing a person's quirk. He taught himself parkour just by watch videos and copy practicing. His favorite hero is Eraserhead because he fights quirklessly. You know nothing about your son. They looked shocked at the information, especially about who trained him to fight. I'm aware they know of the dojo because they tried to enroll Izumi and her friends in there too. Tuya said, "Do you want to know what he's been dealing with alongside your neglect? The people who were supposed to be his friends using their quirks on him. That includes your golden child." Izumi's face went pale at that, but Tashinori and Inko go into denial. Izumi wouldn't do such a thing. She plans to be a hero, so why would she attack someone who couldn't defend himself? I simply glare at them. Dad said take off your FING rose-colored glasses. Izuku is in there with several broken ribs, a wound across his entire stomach where the skin has been burned away. His wrists have nearly no skin left for him, being frozen. Who do you know who could do that? Tuya said, I've intervened on them, beating the crap out of him. So many times LV lost count. The amount of times Eve had to patch him up because of it. God, his pain tolerance is through the roof. Because of it that these days when he has burns you could press it and he wouldn't even flinch. Tell me, how is that normal? They step back in horror at this and look at Izumi, who has her head down. Izumi? She just nods with her head down. Why? Izumi said we wanted to protect him in case he didn't get a quirk. So we wanted to make him scared of quirks, just in case. But somewhere along the way, I think we lost sight of our actual goal. Her voice is cracking with every sentence. We planned that if he got a quirk, that our way to apologize for everything was to help him learn how to use his quirk. And if he didn't, we'd find another way to apologize, like with his analyzing or something. I can tell she's on the verge of crying now, but she has no sympathy for me. Rumi steps up and says, who gave you that bright idea? Who told you that would even work? She's furious. I've seen her angry before, but never this angry. Tashinori isn't saying anything. He looks contemplative and introspective, but Izumi answers her. It was Kak, and he made a compelling argument, but Shoko and Katsumi said they refused to use their quirk on him, and they didn't for 2 years. I think that's around the time we lost sight why we were doing it. I scoff at that. But Kugo never had any intention of trying to protect Izuku. He has always had a crush on you before he even knew what a crush was. He wanted you to himself because he knew Shoto wanted his sister. He knew you would always put your brother above anyone else. So he made a case where you would want to hurt him and make Izuku either hate you or you all kill him. And I swear to God, if he die in that room, I will make it my goal to make sure you all are cacklisted from every hero school in the world. Family or not, Dad said, and I will help in that matter. In fact, here comes the people who can ensure it happens. Sure enough, Aizawa, Shoto, and Yamada, Hizashi, also known as Pro Heroes Eraserhead, and Present Mike were walking down the hall. Inko said, what are you two doing here? She asked, shocked and curious. Aizawa said our son called and told us his friend was rushed here and was in critical condition. What's going on? Tuya said Izuku Yagi, the birth son of these two, whom they have neglected since his quirk exam, was put on death's door by the daughter of these two, my younger siblings and their friends. Izumi said, wait, this wasn't me. I left with Katsumi and Shoko. We were some of the first to leave because I was to mute Dad on the beach. Tuya said that doesn't excuse the fact you nearly killed him several times with those broken ribs. I took a photo of how I found him. I won't be showing anyone while those three are here, though. Me and Dad have already told them to leave. Aizawa whirled around. Rage was evident as I could see his hair floating, signifying he was using his quirk. I only know this because of Izuku's expert analysis skills. You neglected a child because he had a weak. I interrupt Aizawa and say he didn't have a quirk. They were told there's a possibility he wouldn't get one, but because of how his core genes were acting, he would likely get one. But they seem to have ignored that fact entirely and just heard the words quirkless. Aizawa said you neglected a child because he was quirkless? Something he couldn't control and might not have even been true? Leave. Here. Now. Before I make you a permanent resident here too. He still had his quirk active, and Yamada was looking horrified at them. They had to stare down with Aizawa, but eventually they relent and say, Izumi, come on. We need to talk about a hat you have done. They turn and leave, and when I know for a fact they're gone, I slump down into a chair and pull out my phone. As I find a picture, I show it to everyone who step away horrified by the image. Dad said Shoto did that. How could he do something like that? His rage was building again, and I knew he had to release his fire, lest he burns the place down. Tuya said, "Can you three stay here for a few minutes? I need to take Dad to release his flames." They all nod, and I guide Dad to the roof, where he flies up into the air, and I can hear him scream in rage as a big ball of fire appears in the clouds. But just as fast as it appears, it dissipates, and Dad floats back down. Better? He simply nods, and we walk back down, where Mom is now waiting for us. Mom said, "How is he? Is he going to be okay?" Tuya said, "We don't know. We haven't heard anything, but Mom, I'm doing what I said I'd do." Mom just nods, knowing that I need to do this for Izuku. So I turn to Aizawa. "Do you think you could give me a meeting with Nizu? He will make this happen a lot faster and smoother." He simply nods and walks away to call the principal. When he's gone, Recovery Girl comes out, and she's as white as a ghost. I don't care how he's still alive, but he is, but I can't do anything more. He has no energy, so I can't use my quirk to help him. Mirko said, "What about those energy gummies?" RG just looks at her like she was an idiot. "No, I mean, what if you use what you used to make them, and use them as an injection instead?" RG looks thoughtful at this. RG said it could work. There would have to be slight modifications to the recipe, but it's possible. "Thank you, Rumi. Looks like there's a brain in there somewhere." After all, she turns and goes back into the room as fast as she can. An hour later, all the doctors are leaving the room. RG looks at us and says he's stable and his wounds are recovering slowly. However, he's in a coma. His brain activity is frantic, however, which leads me to believe this won't last long. Over the next week, I worked with Nizu to gather evidence that Izuku's loving conditions aren't safe for him. Nizu managed to get a warrant to inspect the Yagi household. When me and Nizu went, I wore a body camera, and Nizu had a notepad to take any important notes. The first thing of note was there was no pictures of Izuku. The family photos all excluded him. It was all Inko, Tashinori, and Izumi. Holiday photos where Izuku was left behind while they went abroad, while Izuku was left to fend for himself. When we looked in Izuku's room, it was barren, faded walls, wooden floors, no posters, only an old dirty bed, a rickety desk, and a computer that was clearly old. And notebooks. I knew these notebooks were his quirk analysis notebooks. We checked his wardrobe, which was filled with bloody bandages, old torn or scorched clothes with only a few large clothes, which I recognized as the clothes Izuku used to hide the fruits of his training. When I want to look to see if he had anything hidden under his bed, I trip on a loose floorboard. Nizu lifted the floorboard to find a metal lockbox, no key in sight, and it was locked. I didn't want to invade Izuku's privacy, but for the investigation, I melted the lock and lifted it. What shocked me was there was a piece of paper with about 400,000 yen. We read the note, and all it said was moving out funds. Well, I'm glad he wanted to leave here, but he could have talked to me about this. But knowing him, he didn't want to be a burden. Nizu had said he's really saved this much at 10 years old. I hadn't responded to him. I saw the corner of a book in the space, too. I reached in. It was untitled, but when I opened it and read a few entries, I was astounded. These were dates, times, and how me or Mom had treated the wounds his bullies had inflicted on him for the past 2 years. This kid is too smart for his own good, but this was perfect evidence. Sakachi will need to see this. We inspected the other bedrooms, and when we saw Izumi's room, it was filled with hero memorabilia, posters, new clothes, a brand new computer and laptop. Honestly, me and Nizu were disgusted by the stark difference of how they've treated the twins. Nizu was sure that we had enough evidence to get Izuku out of here. Mom came over per my request 10 minutes later with a small suitcase, in which me and Mom packed anything worth keeping for Izuku, specifically his undamaged clothes, his lockbox, journal, and notebooks, and left. Nizu told me to come to his office in UA in 2 days, and we will GI through the paperwork and make me his new legal guardian. I want to force Izuku into being adopted, but I will be his guardian. If he wants me to adopt him, all he has to do is ask. Time skip to the next week in the hospital. Izuku POV. I open my eyes slowly to a blinding white, which hurt my eyes. I quickly shut them. Something felt weird in my body. I felt stronger, but now wasn't the time. I opened my eyes a little to allow them to adjust to the brightness, and when I could open my eyes properly, I sat up. That was a bad idea, as I got a blinding pain from my stomach. I looked around for the call button on, which after a few moments I found and pressed it. After a minute, I could hear rushing footsteps, but it took another minute for the owner of them to come into the room. Enhanced hearing? The owner of the footsteps was actually RG, and she looked disheveled and frantic. I look at the short older woman in an oversized lab coat, with her syringe-shaped cane, and syringe in her high bun, which was falling apart. She looked like she had barely slept. "Izuku," said a high recovery girl. "Can you explain to me why I'm here?" She just looked at me with a bewildered look. RG said, "Do you not remember? You nearly died." Izuku said, "Oh, that's when I remember the events of that day." "Oh yeah, I remember." "Bastards." I mumbled the last bit because I don't want to be on the end of her cane. I've heard rumors of what she does with that damn thing. "How long have I been here?" RG said, "You've been in here for a week. You were in a coma." I almost couldn't do anything if it hadn't been for Mirko making me realize I can make my energy gummies a liquid. "Our guardians are on their way over, along with a young man with his parents and a young woman with her parents." I scowl at this. "You called the Tashinori and Inko? I don't want them here. They need to stay away from me." She simply shook her head at this. RG said the Yagis are no longer responsible for you. It has been deemed unfit for you to live under their roof. Your new guardians, AR. She never got to finish when Tuya came into the room, looking relieved that I'm awake. Tuya said, "Thank God you're alive." He looked like he had barely slept as well, but I wonder what he's been doing for him to be in this state. RG, Mr. Todoroki, and Miss Rumi Usajiyama, she finished. I simply looked at him in shock. He smiles awkwardly as he rubs his neck. "Tuya said I was going to get you out of that house. I had planned to do it over the course of the holidays. But this incident has made me push that schedule forward. So all your belongings are in my apartment, along with some new stuff, Rumi, and I took the liberty of buying you. And I'm opening my own agency in the next few weeks, so me and Rumi should be able to provide for you comfortably. Not to mention Mom and Dad are going to help out. And don't even think about apologizing for being a burden, because you're not one. We all agreed that Shoto and Shoko will not be finding out you live with me either." Just then a purple blur flew into the room and was on top of me before I even knew what happened. When I looked down, I winced slightly at the squeeze, but I saw it was Kyoka as Hitoshi walked in the room too. "Hi, Kyo. Hey, Toshi." "Sorry, Kyo, but can you loosen up your grip a bit? I'm still sore." She does so, but I can hear small sobs coming from her, so I simply stroke her hair. Hitoshi didn't say anything. He just looked relieved that I'm okay and alive. I looked at Tuya. There's a hidden compartment in my room where I hid stuff, so Izumi. Tuya interrupted me by saying the floorboard. I know, I got it. When Nizu and I were speeding through the investigation, I tripped on it, so we found the box and journal. I nodded at that. RG said you're recovering well. I want to keep you here at least one more night, but I'm sorry to say you will have a large scar on your wrists and stomach. My quirk can only do so much. I'm not a bit sad at that, but no, there's nothing that can be done. Tuya also told me that Tashinori and Inko have decided they will not train Izumi or the others, and Uncle Enji and Aunt Ray is refusing to do so too. When I was released the next day, I noticed something. The scars on my wrist were more faded than they should be. I decided to investigate this at a later date. Kyoka and Hitoshi have told me to take the next week to myself and adjust to my new living arrangement. So now my new life living with Tuya and Rumi begins. Izuku POV. Living with Tuya and Rumi has been great. All that's asked of me is to help keep the house clean. Otherwise, I'm allowed to do my own thing as long as I'm home by 8 p.m., and if I'm going to be late, I let them know. I also have them ready on speed dial. Tuya went and bought me a more modern phone, in case the Yagis or company find me and try to approach me. I've only been living with them for 3 weeks now, but my life is so much better than it has been since I was 4. I've also been training with my newly found quirk. I realized it had activated when by a week after I left the hospital, the scars on my wrist were basically gone, and the one on my chest was smaller and faded more. I haven't told Tuya yet. I want to figure out the basics of my quirk first. I understand I have a healing factor, enhanced strength, speed, and agility along with my senses and reactions. Flashback to when I started to experiment with my quirk. I had asked the owner, Mr. Junji of a junkyard, if I could train my quirk in a quiet area of the junkyard. He had allowed it for free, but I had to inform him when I arrived and left. And he had no issue if I destroy stuff. I ran to the far end of the junkyard, where I was told I could train. I punched an old washing machine, and it had dented. I then focused on that strength I felt in the hospital. I sat there and concentrated on it for a few moments, and then punched it again. I severely underestimated the strength because the washing machine flew into a junk pile and accidentally made it collapse and fall. I wasn't paying attention, but the clattering metal was strangely loud and hurt my ears, and without thinking, I jumped away and flipped over a bit of stray junk then. Whoa. Okay, so my strength is leagues beyond what I had anticipated. Along with my hearing, my speed is higher and my reaction time is a stupid fast. Tie that in with my instincts, and that would make it really difficult to hit me. I bought a new notebook. I had dubbed quirk abilities and how to train them. I wrote down everything I'd said out loud. I wonder how strong I actually am. I looked around and found a small mini. I walked up and braced myself to strain when picking it up, and when I left it, it was lighter than I expected, and I flipped it accidentally. Oops. Okay, 1.5 tons is really light. I want to find Mr. Junji to ask if he knew what around here weighed 4 tons. When I asked him, he just looked at me skeptically. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I just flipped a mini with no effort, so I want to test how strong I am. I explained the situation of my quirk, to which he nodded in understanding. He told me he would have a look around and take various machines and vehicles of increasing weight to my corner for me over the next week, to which I thanked him for. I went back to my corner and thought about the other stuff I felt while my quirk was trying to manifest. I think about the heat I would get in my hands or feet. I focus on the heat in one of my hands, and to my surprise, it became surrounded by fire. Cool, I let the flame disperse, and then focus on the coal. My hand starts letting off coal vapors. I lightly punch a bit of scrap metal to test it, and it completely encased in a thin layer of ice the second my hand connected. Oh, I try to think of static electricity, but I can't do anything to get it to come. I wrote down everything in my notebook, then I took my shoes off after clearing a space. I focus on creating flames on my feet. Once they spark, I try to focus the fire into a jet downwards. It takes significant effort, but I manage to do so, and float for a second before I lose my balance and faceplant the floor and slice my forearm on a sharp bit of glass I hadn't seen. Ouch, ouch. I looked at my forearm only to see the last of the cut close up. Okay, so very fast healing. I wonder how far that goes and if I could regrow limbs. I shook my head at that, not testing that anytime soon. Over the next week, I tested my strength on the different weights. Turns out I started to struggle around 20 tons and flat out can't lift anything 25 tons yet. Back to the present. So here I am in the junkyard again, but this time I'm waiting for Kyoka, Hitoshi, Uncle Enji, Aunt Ray, Grandpa Torino, Tuya, Rumi, and Uncle Shota. After everything that happened in the hospital, he came to check on me and see how I was doing. They were thankful to me because unknown to my Hitoshi hated his quirk because of its nature and people calling it villainous, but I gave him a new outlook on his quirk and even encouraged his RO train his body. So he trained with a razor head too in close combat. But Shota and Hizashi insisted I call them uncle, which I had no objections to. Kyoka's parents joked and told me to call them mom and dad, which I'm not ashamed to admit I went severely red at. Once everyone was here and Mr. Kunji told them where to find me, they were all confused as to why I asked them to come to a junkyard. Okay, thank you for coming. I know this is odd, but my quirk has finally awakened. There were gasps of excitement and shock. Uncle Enji said, well, what is it? His arms were crossed, but he wasn't doing a very good job at hiding his curiosity. Sensei Satoshi had informed him and Aunt Ray, as they were classed as my emergency contacts, of my experiences with odd bursts of strength and odd fluctuations in temperature when I'm sparing. Izuku said, well, it's kind of multifaceted. First, he'll show you the most obvious physically. Remember those scars on my wrists, while I lift my sleeve to reveal them being clean of scars. Uncle Enji grabbed my wrist and give me a 1st or 2nd degree burn. Enji said, were you nuts? I'm not doing that. Izuku said it's either you do it or I slice my arm with a random piece of metal. That could be rusty. Ray not wanting me to get ill because of me being an idiot nudged Enji to do it, whispering only first degree. Begrudgingly, I can tell. He walked forward and grabbed my wrist. Are you sure? He asked, to which I nodded. He let his hand burn until I had a second-degree burn, because I told him to make it second when he went to stop. When he stepped back, I raised New York arm for everyone to see, but just as quickly as it had been burned, the skin had knitted itself back together like nothing had happened. Looks of surprise were on everyone's face. I haven't tested the limits on that part yet. I wanted to do that around a healer first. They all nodded their heads in astonishment. Grandpa, would you say you're the fastest here? He looked at me annoyed but nodded. He was still extremely pissed off at Toshinori about how I was treated. Especially since, as I found out recently, Toshinori was quirkless before too. I was told had punched and kicked the crap out of him for it. He had asked Grandpa to ask me to take one for all, but I refused, saying to give it to Melissa or to Izumi. But Grandpa had stated if he gave the quirk to Izumi, he wouldn't assist in training her. Bounce about tried to hit me. Don't worry about holding back after asking Tuya to hold his cane. That's what he did. He bounced all over the place with his quirk jet, but with my enhanced agility, reactions, and senses, I dodge each and every attack, which even Uncle Enji and Asmai can't do. Enhanced reaction speed, agility, and sense. Grandpa walked over and sat on an old tire to watch the rest of my demonstration. I walked over to a truck with some machines in it that weighed collectively 25 tons and lifted it. Sure, I struggled, but I did it. I needed to go more into my healing factor, so in the blink of an eye I rushed and nicked Uncle Shota's knife. Izuku said sorry, but you can have it back in a second. To everyone's protests, I ran the knife down my forearm, so that they could watch the cut start to heal before I had finished slicing. I sheathed the knife and passed it back to Uncle Shota, who gave me a slap on the back of my head, and Grandpa smacked me with his cane for doing that. Ow, hey, sorry, but I warned you that would happen. After him finished showing what the healing has done, you'll find out why I knew I was rubbing to my head while I explained. Izuku said, First, Kyo, are you sure you're okay seeing this? Sure, you have seen me shirtless, but this will show you the scar from 3 weeks ago. She shaked her head at this. Kyoka said, I don't think I can see that yet. You almost died. I don't think I can see the reminder of that. I nod my head in understanding. Izuku said, that's okay. I'll start with my back, and I'll tell you to look away before turning around. She nodded at this, and I turn around and lift my shirt. Again, there were a few gasps of shock. In particular, Hitoshi, Kyoka, Aunt Ray, and Tia. They had seen my scars since they had helped treat or replace bandages on my wound. But my back looked like it had never had them in the first place. Okay, Kyo, turn around. After being told she and Hitoshi was looking away, I turned around, and they saw that the scar on my stomach was severely faded. Enji said, how are the other scars gone, but not that one? And why didn't your enhanced healing heal that one when you were in hospital? After replacing my top, Kyoka and Hitoshi turned back around. Izuku said, I thought about that, and I think it was healing me, but due to how weak I was, it wasn't healing me as quickly as it is now. RG had said that my wrist should have been a lot worse, and that she didn't even know how I was still alive. So I think it's thanks to the healing factor as to why I'm alive. Tuya said, so your quirk is just an enhancement type. We can help you train that easily. I simply rubbed the back of my head. Not exactly. I took my socks and shoes off and focused on the fire in my feet. The set ablaze, and then I turned them into jets when I start to fly, but I faceplant again. I started to pick myself up. That's how I found out about how fast my healing was. That exact same thing happened, and I sliced my arm on a bit of glass. Am only able to do my fists or feet currently, and not simultaneously. But that's not all. After replacing my socks and shoes, I walk over to an old dishwasher, and when I feel the familiar chill in my fist and cold vapor comes in my hand, I lightly punch it, and it becomes covered in ice. And I think I'm only scratching the surface of my quirk. I can't use whatever electricity Toshi and Kyoka have felt in our spars. Izuku said, I was hoping everyone here could help me train with this and learn more about my quirk. I thought Tuya and Unc Enji could help with the fire stuff. Aunt Ray could help with the ice. Uncle Shota, since you're a teacher, I thought you could help me learn more about my quirk. And Grandpa, since you're so fast, I thought maybe you could help me adapt my newfound agility and elemental abilities into my fighting style. I will understand if any of you can't or refuse. I bow slightly to my request. To my surprise, they all agreed, and Rumi had chimed in and said she would help along with Grandpa to help me figure out my fighting style. Kyoka had ran Yuo to me and hugged me, expressing how happy she was for me that I finally got Quirk. She wasn't. Please, I had kept it secret from her, and Hitoshi had punched my arm for hiding this. And no one was very pleased that it took me nearly dying for my Quirk to stabilize and manifest. Shota said RG was the doctor who did your Quirk diagnosis when you were little, right, Yagi? I scowled at that. Please, Uncle Shota, don't call me that. Call me Izuku or Shimura. I plan to change my name to my grandma's maiden name. If that's okay with you, Tuya? He nodded, stating he will help me get my name changed legally before junior high started. But yes, Uncle Shota, RG diagnosed me as a potential late bloomer. Shota said I will arrange a new appointment with her for you. He was giving me one of his rare smile, all the while Kyoka hadn't stopped hugging me, and my face was starting to go red. Tuya stated that it was getting late and that I should probably take Kyoka home and then come home. He also said that he and Rumi was going to get me a present in celebration of my Quirk awakening. So that's what I did while everyone else went in different directions to head home. I took Kyoka home, who decided that my newfound strength was going to be used for carrying her on my back. I don't mind. I know how I feel about her and know that all I want is her. But despite the confidence I've built over the years, I was still scared and anxious about ruining our friendship by being selfish. And so, over the next few days, Uncle Shota arranged an appointment with RG. In the meantime, Tuya took me to get my name changed, so now I'm legally Izuku Shimura. Hitoshi had his other dad, Uncle Hizashi, aka Present Mike, took him to change his last name to Aizawa. Turns out he's been wanting to for a while. They adopted Hitoshi when he was 6 from an abusive home, and when I said at the junkyard that I wanted my name changed, it gave him the courage to ask his dad's. So he is now Hitoshi Aizawa. Me and Kyoka couldn't be happier for him. He seems happier with himself now because of it too. A week later, Rumi took me to UA for my appointment with RG. Tuya wanted to come, but since he's getting ready to open his own agency, he's really busy with paperwork. It doesn't bother me. I'm just grateful he took me in and saved me. So here me and Rumi are, sat in RG's office waiting for the results of the Quirk examination. We've been sat here for about 10 minutes, and I can tell Rumi is getting a bit impatient. I think it's an effect if her Quirk. Rabbits aren't known for staying still for very long, so I think she's getting a bit jittery. That's when RG walked back in. Well, Mr. Shimura, your Quirk is astounding. It has indeed stabilized, but it isn't finished developing. I look at RG confused. Izuku said sorry, but can you explain, please? My knee is bouncing from both the nerves and excitement of finding what my Quirk can actually do. RG said, well, simply put, your Quirk genes are still developing, which is normal, but yours are still acting a little frantic. But with the information I have managed to get, I can make an educated guess of what it will be able to do when it's finished manifesting all its aspects. So far, your body has adapted itself to be more durable. Your muscles will grow and develop at an enhanced rate since you have a healing factor on the level of a high rank regeneration Quirk. Your strength is heightened to a level of a high B, low A rank strength augmentation Quirk. My eyes widen at this information. I knew physical abilities were enhanced, but I didn't realize it was to this extent. Your speed being part of your strength is also a high B, low A rank. Your sense are at that of a mid-A rank, making you able to perceive your surrounding area at an extremely fast rate. This includes scent, sight, and hearing. This is also why your reaction time is so fast. I look up at Rumi. Her face is scrunched up slightly in a thinking manner. She's clearly processing all the information. RG said, but the more surprising thing is, not only have you got an enhancement Quirk, you also seem to have or will have moderate control over the basic elements, such as fire, water, lightning, earth and metals, and air. From what I can tell, you have a slight ability to control fire and ice, but it is only a small amount of control so far. With training, and while your Quirk evolves, you could reach strength on par or beyond your all mights. Your speed could surpass the speed of sound. Your elements could turn your whole body into those elements, encase your body in those elements. It would probably be a trade-off, however. For example, if you turned your body to stone or made armor put of stone, it would probably increase your durability and physical power in exchange for your speed. Of course, you may be able to find work around such exchanges, but that would be down to what you do to find out. You may have elemental kinesis, but only you can find out the limits of your quirk. Izuku said, "So, is the reason I can only use ice and fire on my hands and feet at the moment, because that's the only elemental aspects my quirk genes have fully stabilized?" RG said, "That is correct, young man. While they haven't finished developing, training with your quirk will speed up their development. But that's right, the reason you cannot use air, earth, or lightning is because they need more time to develop and manifest. So I advise caution when trying to trigger them. Otherwise, you could destabilize your quirk core." I nod and process that information. My brain then wanders for a few moments towards the possibilities with this quirk. This quirk sounds incredibly versatile, and my mind is going a mile a minute thinking of all the possibilities of how it could be used for rescue work and fighting villains. I get so lost in my thought, I didn't hear RG talking. It took Rumi rapping her knuckles on my head for me to snap out of it. "Oh, I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?" I can feel my face turn red from embarrassment. However, RG just chuckled lightly. "Don't worry, Mr. Shimura. All I asked was that you know what you'd like to name your quirk?" I think about it for a moment. I have some kind of elemental powers and physical enhancement. That's what comes to me. Izuku said the name is a bit basic, but I do like to call it physical element. RG simply nods at that and starts inputting the information into her computer to update my quirk registry. RG said that you all set. If you learn any new information on your quirk and wish to get it uploaded onto the registry, as young Aizawa, to ask his dad, and I shall arrange a phone call with you. She was smiling this entire time. I'd heard she'd beaten Tashinori and Inko black and blue with her cane. That information made me smile. As me and Rumi are leaving, I ask RG one more thing. "Recovery girl, can I make a request?" Both Rumi and RG look at me with curiosity. Of course. However, I can only do so much. So, depending on your request will depend on if I can fulfill your request. Izuku said, "Don't tell any of the Yagis that my quirk has manifested or what my quirk is. I already know they will be checking the quirk registry for Izuku Yagi's quirk. I don't want them knowing what I've changed my name to, or that I have a quirk. They can wait till either we get into UA, or at the entrance exam." To that she simply said that her lips were sealed and we left. When we got home, Tuya wasn't home. He was signing for a building to have his agency at. Rumi came up to me, asking to talk before her patrol. Rumi said, "Izuku, you know we can get those 5 blacklisted from hero schools, right? You don't have to see them again." I give her a serious look and respond with, "I'm aware, Rumi, but I'm going to prove to them that not only were they wrong about me, but that I'm stronger than them, and that they should never have tried to kill me or underestimate me." Rumi just looks at me, then ruffles my hair. "Then do it, kid. We all know you can. You're a hard worker, and now that you have a quirk, your growth is going to trump theirs, not to mention you have the support of me, Tuya, your grandpa Enji Ray, your girlfriend, and the Aizawas to help your growth." I blushed furiously when she called Kyoko my girlfriend. In waving my hands in front of my face, try to wave away what she said, while also trying to hide my blush. It's not like that me and Kyo are just friends. Rumi just had a devilish smirk at that. "That may be true for now, kid, but everyone can see that you have a huge crush on her." My face is just getting redder and redder from embarrassment. Izuku said, "Am I that obvious?" She ruffled my hair again as she stood up. Rumi said yes, to everyone but her. She smiled at me as she walked off. I got to go on patrol now, so be good. Tuya will be home in the next hour, okay? I gave her a grunt of affirmation as I pulled out my personal quirk notebook to insert all the information RG had told us, while also writing potential use of the quirk in rescue and other aspects of hero work. Over the next few years, life went really well. I'm 13 now. Tuya enrolled me in the same school as Kyoko, where we're always together. I've started to notice that she's been getting more flustered around me, blushing a lot more. We hang out with Toshi as often as we can. We go to the mall, or the park, or anywhere we want really. We steer clear of where my past usually are. Toshi has taken to teasing me and Kyo on how we are with each other, like he knows something we don't. Tuya has been engaged to Rumi for about 4 months now. They are happy and are talking about maybe trying for a kid. I'm thinking of asking them to adopt me too. They've grown on the hero rankings too. Rumi, aka Mirko, is now 5th onto the hero rankings, and Tuya, aka Frozen Blaze, is 9th. He is expected to be 7th or 8th in the next rankings announcement. Our training has been very beneficial. Kyoka's combat ability has skyrocketed. She's now not just using her EUX chords to my sonic attacks, but using them as weapons in surprise attacks. She also learned how to fly by doing the same as she did by stabbing her aux cord earlobes in her thighs and projecting sound waves through her legs. She not only strengthened her legs, but her thighs developed aux ports as well. So when she plugs her jacks into them and sends sound waves through her feet, she can send around waves through her feet. She's still trying to master flying, but she's coming along well. Uncle Shota started teaching Toshi how to use his capture scarf last year, and he's getting pretty good at it too. His combat style has changed a bit as well. It's become a combination of the style he adopted from my teachings and his dad's fighting style. His mental, Uncle Shota, agreed with my deduction that the stronger Toshi's mental strength was, the better hild his quirk will have, and the more complex instructions he could make his opponent do. He asked his colleagues at UA to help him conduct an experiment where Toshi used his quirk on them and make them do certain tasks. Turns out, the stronger his target's mind is, the better they can resist his control. In fact, the only person or thing that completely resisted his brainwashing was the Principal Nizu, who offered to help make Toshi's mental strength on his level. Shota was against it, but with enough begging and kissing up to his dad, Shota gave in and allowed Nizu to help Toshi. My training has been more complex. Grandpa has helped me develop my fighting style into a more acrobatic style, mixed with my military style. His way of teaching is harsh and painful, with a learn-from-failure style of teaching, while he also helped me with my traversal capabilities. Rumi also helped me develop my fighting style, but she helped me by making me incorporate my elements into it. She also has a learn-from-failure style of teaching. Tuya focused on my flight capabilities with my quirk and trying to see if I could use my elements in a range capacity. Currently, I can use weak ice blasts that instantly freeze a target's limb, but I only have a range of about 20 meters currently, and I can send small fireballs that explode with radius of 5 meters and small flamethrowers with a range of 20 meters. Compared to Tuya and Uncle Enji's flames, mine aren't that hot, whereas their flames can reach into the 30C range mine cap at about 750C. Tuya's style of teaching was more patient, with a watch and copy kind of style. Obviously, it was a learning curve for us to adapt to, since our elemental powers work differently. Aunt Ray focused on my ice capability, trying to help me work my ice armor of my ice. So far, I can completely cover my legs and arms in ice. We found I don't have the problem of becoming too cold since my heat protects me from the inside. My ice embodiment, as I've grown to call it, acts a bit like armor. It's not foolproof and will break after one hit unless I thicken the ice, but doing so takes my speed away, so I use the ice as a way to add a little more force to my attacks. Aunt Ray also has been trying to see if I can use cryokinesis, and so far I have a very limited control of it. If she sends a blast of ice towards me, all I can do is redirect it. I can't redirect it on her yet, but I'm progressing slowly but surely. Aunt Ray has a more patient and positive reinforcement style of teaching, which has really helped my mental state after the years of neglect. Uncle Enji has been working on the same as Aunt Ray, but with fire, while also trying to help me increase the heat of my fire, since I haven't found a limit to how much heat I can take yet. He wants to see if I can make my flames as hot as Tuya's, but so far I'm nowhere near. I seem to have more ease with manipulating pyrokinesis and my full immolation, as I like to call it. I can completely coat my body in fire, giving my attacks an added addition of burning my opponents, and if I manipulate my fire, I can strike my opponents faster. Enji's teaching style is harsh and unforgiving, which I'll be honest, I didn't expect anything else. In fact, on our first training session, I told him not to hold back on how hard he trains me. He has me spar with some of his sidekicks once a month to see how much I progressed and see how I could improve. Uncle Shota, being a teacher, has a more focused idea of teaching with little patience for slacking off. He is trying to help me unlock the rest of my elements in safe ways that won't risk damaging my core. So far, I can use wind to buff up my speed and burst for traversal, add a bit of a blowback to attacks as well. I've also started manifesting my lightning, but all it does currently brings sparks along my fingers. We did a test on how voltage these sparks were, and to both of our surprise, it hit the 2 million volts mark. I've also started to call Uncle Shota Uncle Sho. He also told me recently he's been researching ways to train regeneration quirks. So I think that's what's next as a break from elemental training and to give my quirk a bit more time to stabilize the other elements. I train with one mentor after school each day, and the weekends are for me to relax or do what I wish. Me, Kyo, and Toshi hang out every weekend. Sometimes we train, sometimes we simply hang out and have fun. Kyo has taken an interest in the parkour me and Toshi do. She said she can see the benefits of it and asked us to teach her. So when I'm training with one of my mentors and Toshi isn't being trained by Uncle Sho, he has taken to doing so, whereas I teach her at the weekends or on my days off from training. My physical strength has improved too. I'm always training it. Since Tuya and Rumi bought me these wearable weights bands, I currently have 2 tons on each wrist. It's not that heavy, but when I'm wearing them, I have to pay attention to my strength so I don't break a table or something. They say not only will it help me get stronger, but ITLL help me control my strength so I don't accidentally kill someone. My reaction time is currently at 0.6 seconds. My top speed is 150 miles per hour or 350 miles per hour when flying. My max weight I can lift is 40 tons. I continued my quirk analysis. I'm nearly finished quirk analysis number 18. I'm pretty much a master at quirk analysis now. It helps that thanks to my enhanced speed, I can process information a lot faster than the normal person. With only seeing the bare-bone information, I can figure out what a quirk can do, most possible applications of the quirk, most obvious drawbacks and weaknesses, and how to exploit, make them overextend, or overuse the quirk after seeing how they use them. I've grown a bit of a reputation with heroes too. It wasn't intentional. Just a few times I've seen villain attacks where the heroes were struggling to get close or take down a villain. I would shout to the heroes on what to do to beat the villain. The first time I did it, I saved 2 heroes from being killed by the SS rank villain Muscular. Flashback. I was walking home from walking Kyoka home when a hero flew into a wall in front of me, nearly hitting me. When I asked what happened and helped the hero up, he had shouted at me to run away. I turn around to see Muscular is left. I was bleeding from where the female water hose hero had blasted his eye. When I used my enhanced eyesight, I figured out how to win. Izuku said excuse me, do you have a spare earpiece? He just looked at me like I was crazy. I know how you can beat him and minimize how strong his quirk makes him, but it requires both of you. The hero looked at me like I was insane. Sorry, but I'm not trusting a child to tell me how to beat a villain. He was about to run back into the fight when I said, my quirk analysis is on par with Principal Nizu, his words. The hero looked at me skeptically, but seeing as they were in a losing battle, decided to take the chance. He handed me a radio and ran back into the fight and informed his partner of what I was going to do. Once she knew what was going to happen, she nodded and continued fighting. Izuku Aquatica, use your quirk to project as much water as possible. Keep it flowing. Hydro, using your hydrokinesis, manipulate her water into the spaces between his muscle fibers. And then just keep the water flowing into the spaces. You need to make his augmented muscles explode. I watched them execute my orders all while avoiding getting hit by Muscular, but I can see that there still isn't enough water. It was a stupid idea, but I sprinted towards a fight where I saw some fire hydrants nearby. So what I kicked the hydrants away, letting the water before doing so to another hydrant. Hydro, more water behind you. He darts his head to see what I had done and used the water and managed to blow up Muscular's augmented muscles. The blowback had been too much for him, and he had lost consciousness. After placing quirk-canceling cuffs on the man, they gave me a light scolding about getting too close. I had simply said it was that, or get involved in the fight. They accepted that I made the better choice and allowed me to leave. Word got round about what I had done, saving low A-rank heroes and giving them the plan to beat a villain several ranks higher than them. The news had spread pretty quickly. Present. There were a few more incidents after this, and most heroes think I have an IQ or analysis quirk. I remember when I gave Kimui Woods' Amth ideal plan to beat a villain with a blade quirk. He had asked me how much my IQ quirk boosted my IQ, and if it was on par with Niza's high specs quirk. I had laughed at that, and told him my quirk wasn't even close to an IQ quirk. I never revealed my quirk to him. I told him to wait till him in the UA Sports Festival for that. It wasn't that I didn't trust the hero, but a lot of heroes like to gossip, and since I have a reputation, I know reporters would ask the heroes if they knew my quirk, and if they did ask what it was. I wasn't giving the Yagis any opportunity to learn anything else about me. I have managed to get a lot of hero autographs thanks to helping so many heroes. It's always so funny to see everyone's reactions when I pull the notebooks out of nowhere. Truth be told, it was Technology Power Loader, the UA support course hero or teacher developed for me. It was a device that made anything I wanted. In this case, my notebooks, pocket-sized. Power Loader is actually trying to sell the blueprints to a support course company, in particular I-Island, to make the device standard issue in hero work. When it comes to U.A, Principal Nizu, Uncle Enji, Aunt Ray, Tuya, Rumi, and even Uncle Sho offer me Kyo and Toshi recommendations. We all had refused. Kyo wanted to get in by testing the fruits of her labor in a combat setting. Toshi went to prove that with enough effort and drive, even a mental quirk user, and therefore quirkless too, can pass the entrance exam. My reason, however, is a lot more selfish. I intend to demolish my past tormentors. Grandpa had asked me to research into the past of Ofa. He had a theory as to why the past users never lived very long with Quirk. Minus the obvious reason. Grandpa had told me THR's story about Ofa and AFO. Since I was in the loop, he thought it was best I had all the information. And what I found and learned made me come to a conclusion about the Quirk. So that's why me and Grandpa are at his apartment, waiting for my sperm donor of a father. When he had arrived, I was not surprised he had brought Izumi. I guess he hadn't listened to me beforehand. Izuku said Yagis. They both looked shocked to see me, and had looks that said they were overcome with regret. I don't care. I'm here for one reason, then I'm leaving. Toshinori and Izumi said Izuku. They spoke like they actually missed me. I managed to withhold the scoff I very nearly let out and keep my face neutral. Izuku said it's Shimura to you, Mr. and Miss Yagi. But to the point at hand, you plan to give Miss Yagi Ofa, correct? Even after you deemed her unworthy of the quirk, and I rejected it. He just looked at me resolutely like he wasn't going to budge on his decision. Toshinori said, that is correct. I have decided that she can use the quirk as a means of redemption. I have no plans of sugarcoating my words here. You're giving her a death sentence. If she takes Ofa, you will cut her lifespan to a maximum of another 10 years. He just gives me a look like he knows something I don't. Toshinori said, I don't believe that's true, Ishimura. I mean, look at me. I've had the quirk for 40 years. He's just looking at me like I'm an idiot and that he's smarter than me. Whereas Izumi looks contemplative. Grandpa said, but there is a huge difference between your situations, Toshi. Let's see if you can figure out. Also, I wouldn't underestimate Izuku here. After all, he is the kid the pros have grown to respect when it comes to break down a quirk's weakness. I'm sure you have heard of the Emerald Informatic. He looks surprised at this. Of course, he's heard of me. They've mentioned me a few times during interviews. But since I never divulged my name, no one knows it's me. Izumi said, can you explain for us how it would kill me? I turned my head and looked at her. She flinched, which obviously meant I failed at hiding the hatred in my eyes. Simply put, the human body isn't capable of maintaining itself while holding two quirks, unless the person's quirk made them capable, like AFO and copy quirks. I looked into the past users, and while it's true most of them died by the hands of AFO, one did not. Toshinori was looking at me intently, like trying to figure out a plot. I was scheming. Grandpa said the fourth user, Hikage Shinomori, had a quirk called Danger Sense, a passive quirk, but after receiving Ofa, it made him paranoid all the time. Understandable when you look at how bad society was at that time. But he became a hermit. Izuku said he had the quirk for 18 years and died of old age. Do you want to know how old he was? I watched them waiting for them to process all the information we had just dropped on them. When they ask, I simply say he was 40 years old. His body deteriorated at such an accelerated rate that he didn't even make it past 50. Toshinori perks up here. So why have I been able to hold the quirk for 40 years? It's a lot stronger now than when this Hikage person had it. Grandpa said, you still haven't figured it out? We have laid out all the pieces. He looks slightly annoyed at how stupid Toshinori is being. Toshinori said, has the quirk maybe stabilized or a different user found a way to rid that effect? I look at him with a deadpan stare. I look at Grandpa, and he can't be serious, right? I get up and head to the kitchen and return with 2 glasses and 2 bottles of water. Izumi said Dad was quirkless before he got OFA, whereas the previous users all had quirks. I clap, genuinely surprised she got it before him. I lift the glasses onto the coffee table and half fill one. Look at it like this glass is empty. This will signify a quirkless. This we will represent Izumi. This represents how much power her body has room to still contain. However, she hasn't reached her peak yet and still has the remainder of the glass to grow. But what if we add OFA into the mix? I pour an entire bottle of water into the half-filled glass and let overflow. The body can no longer contain so much power that it overflows and over time will deteriorate the glass. But remember how much power is in OFA now. I clean up the coffee table and move to the empty glass. However, this glass, the quirkless, doesn't have any power within the body. So if we give the quirkless person OFA, I pour another entire water bottle into it as it reaches the brim. There's room for OFA to be contained and not deteriorate the user. So that means from this point on, Mr. Yagi, only the quirkless can use OFA. So I hope you will take my advice and give the quirk to Melissa or another quirkless, and you cannot teach them, which I am expecting to be honest, call Grandpa, and I will take over their training in UA and teach them to manage the quirk. Once it's done, they are all yours. And don't think I'm doing this because I still feel some familial bond either. I just can't let someone do something like this without knowing the consequences. I won't let someone die if I can help it. But if the both of you still go through with this, I won't be held accountable since I warned you. I get up to leave, and as I reach the door, Toshinori speaks up. What makes you think someone who is quirkless, can teach someone better than the previous user? I don't even turn and look at him. I just say with a serious tone, because you're an idiot and couldn't teach a monkey to eat a banana. After saying that, I leave, but as I'm shutting the door, all I can hear with my super hearing is Grandpa laughing like that's the funniest joke of the century. But I leave. I have nothing more to say to them. Little did they know I knew Izumi was following me. I'm trying to find out where I live now, huh? After not having me to abuse for 3 years, I think to myself. I slip into an alleyway and jump up using the skills of parkour and the teachings of Grandpa. I climb onto the roof and wait for her to arrive in the alley. When I see her enter the alley looking for me, I slip down the hall, using my flames to slow my descent. When I land behind her and cross my arms, "What do you want, Miss Yagi?" She whirled around surprised. "Izuku, I want to apologize and explain myself." She looks sad, but honestly I have no sympathy for her. Izuku said 2 things. "Don't call me Izuku, you lost that right." "To you, I'm Shimura." Also 2 minutes ago, Izumi said I'm sorry. "I wanted to protect you. There isn't a guarantee you will get a quirk, and I was scared that if you tried to be a quirkless hero you would die. I never meant for everyone to go so far. I had no idea Shoto and Katsuki had tried to kill you. If I had, I would have stopped them before it even happened. Shoko and Katsumi never intended to use their quirks on you when we started. They're in love with you. They always have been, and were scared you would die. Katsumi has started focusing on finding less volatile ways of using her quirk, and Shoko is the same, and has gone as far as to stop using her fire side, because she hates how much she burned and hurt you with it. Please come home. We all miss you and want to be a family again." She has tears brimming her eyes. But to that I just want to shrug it off. Izuku said, "That's all you have to say? That you abused me and made me want to kill myself several times? Because you wanted to protect me? You know, the only reason I'm here today is because other than my current family, I had 2 people who believed I could become a hero and stuck with me, lifted me up when I was at my lowest. I don't need a quirk to beat any of you. My sensei very selective in his students. So selective, I know your father tried to get you and the others in there and was rejected, even when he tried pulling his symbol of peace card. I, however, was hand-picked by the man. So no, I won't be returning to that house. That hasn't been my home since I was 4. Izumi said, "Izuku, please. I'm sorry." Her tears are freely falling now. Izuku said, "Time's up, but I will say one last thing. I will get Uncle Enji training the twins again. And you can tell Miss Todoroki that withholding from using her fire will affect her core and mental stability. Quirks are muscles that need to be used, and when they aren't used, they will cause her to have a mental breakdown and have her end up in a hospital. If that happens, she can kiss her hero career goodbye. As for the two bastards that killed me, you want to know why they did it? Mr. Todoroki was jealous that Miss Bakugo had feelings for me. He always liked her. And Mr. Bakugo wanted you all to himself. And he thought that as long as I'm around, he would never get your full attention. Since he wanted to protect me, they had every intention of killing me. It's only thanks to Tuya and his fiancée, Rumi, I'm alive. And the only reason they haven't been arrested or blacklisted is because I stopped them from doing so, because I'm going to prove to you all that you're not the big shots you think you are. And that I'm above all of you. After I say my piece, I leave the alleyway, as she falls to her knees, bawling her eyes out. On the bright side, it has given me the courage to do something I've wanted to do, and I want to talk to Toshi about something else I want to do, but I want his opinion first. When I got home, I texted Toshi. Training Addict said, "Hey Toshi, tomorrow after school, think we can meet up at that cat cafe you like? Just me and you, I need to talk to you." Without Kyo. Caterpillar Jr. said, "Sure, but you okay? Sounds serious." Training Addict said, "Yeah, I'm okay. I just need your opinion and advice on something." Caterpillar Jr. said, "Okay, Izuku. I'll see you tomorrow." After texting Toshi, I called Grandpa to find out what happened after I left. Turns out the dumbass thinks I'm lying until Grandpa beat some sense into him and made him think about all I said and the evidence I provided. Izumi had come back 15 minutes after I left her face. It had been clear she had been crying. After ending the call, it was time to call Uncle Enji and Aunt Ray. Enji said, "Hello, Izuka, how can we help you?" Izuku said, "Hi, Uncle Enji. Aunt Ray, there's two things I want to talk to you about. Are the twins around? I'd like to talk to you two in person, but in private." Aunt Ray said, "We are currently at the agency if you want to come over to talk." Izuku said, "That would be great. I'll see you both in about 20 minutes then." Enji and Ray said, "See you shortly." After ending the call, I leave a note on the fridge letting Tuya and Rumi know I might be out late. They're currently on patrol, so they may be home before me or I'll be home before them. It was a hit or miss sometimes. I leave the house and start heading to the Endeavor Blizzard Agency. Unfortunately, there was a Villian attack. Apparently, the Villian also had a hostage. I heard some civilians saying All Might was chasing this Villian this morning. Of course, the dumbass lost track of the Villian. I can hear Kamui Woods and Death Arms saying they didn't have the right quirks because the hostage was using their quirk to try escape, but was setting fire to the surrounding building. I see it's Katsuki Bakugo. Of course, the asshole was trying to brute force his way out and making it impossible for Kamui Woods to grab him. I walk up to Backdraft. Izuku said, "Backdraft, I can help take the Villian down and save the idiot." Backdraft said, "Kid, get back. It's not safe." Izuku said, "Kamui Woods can vouch for me. My plans work." So that's what Backdraft does, and Kamui Woods does in fact vouch for me. So Backdraft lets me past. I walk up to the other pros where Death Arms then tries to scold me, but Kamui Woods stops him. Izuku said, "Backdraft, we're going to need you here. Kamui Woods make a barrier with UR branches to stop the spectators from getting closer. They'll break them off you, so you have full use of your arms." So Backdraft comes up to us, as Kamui Woods does as I say. I apologize for any discomfort Kamui Woods may feel as I place a hand on the branch, freezing the area under my hand, and then punching the frozen area, snapping the branch off. I walk up to the pros again. Izuku said, "Backdraft, you need to spray your water into the air. Make rain that will help with the fire in the kid's quirk." Death Arms once again opportunity threw a bit of rubble straight into the villain's eyes. Kamui Woods. Once the villain is stunned by this act, you will rush in and grab the kid. Once that's done, Death Arms throw the biggest bit of rubble you can at the villain face. You need to splatter him, then capture him in an airtight container. They all look at me stunned that I managed to make up a plan that detailed, which prioritizes rescuing the hostage and reducing collateral damage in such a short time. All except Kamui Woods, who has seen me do this before. I walk to the branch barrier Woods had made, and watch as they execute the plan perfectly. Once they've secured the villain, I break the branch barrier, and the civilians can see the villain is contained. After this is done, I continue on my way to the Endeavor Blizzard Agency. Once I arrive, I go to their office, where they are waiting for me. "Aunt, Uncle, good to see you again." They smile and offer me a seat. Aunt Ray asks about the sludge villain, to which I explain what happened. Uncle Enji laughs and said, "So the Emerald Informatic strikes again, EY?" I blushed at this. I never intended to become known in the hero world this way, but both my aunt and uncle reassure me that it's not a bad thing, that I'm already known for my quick thinking, and that once I've made my capabilities known at the sports festival, I'll be getting hero offers left and right. I smiled and said, "So the reason I've asked to see you too is for a personal reason and I guess profession reason, but also personal on your end." They asked me to continue, to which I nod. Simply put, I'd like to continue my fire and ice training in my own, and I think you should train the twins. Miss Yagi told me about Shoko not using her fire, which if that continues, she will end up in a mental hospital. But I also want them to be as strong as possible, so they have no excuses when I beat them in the entrance exam. They look shocked at this, but they know that when it comes to quirks, the only person who could rival my knowledge was the Chimera Principal, who I swear the base animal is a stout, but rat's neither here nor there. Ray said we understand why you would tell us to train them, especially Shoko, but are you sure you want to stop training with us? We can still make time for you. Izuku said, "That sort of brings me to my next point. My training with Grandpa has come to end. He says all I can do now is learn to incorporate my elements into it, which is something I have to learn on my own. Rumi spars with me once every week or 2 weeks, so I can practice that with her, and my training with Uncle Sho has been focused on my healing. Currently am at a high mid-level S-rank regeneration quirk. I can pretty much regrow limbs now, but he wants to get me to a high S to bordering on SS rank level before the exams. So I was going to ask Tuya if we can change our training a bit to focus on my fire's range and heat, and my ice armor. However, the more personal side of things I wanted to ask was, how would you feel if I became your adopted grandson? I've been seeing Tuya and Rumi more as parents, especially recently, and I was thinking of asking them to officially adopt me. I barely had a chance to finish speaking when Aunt Ray had me in a bone-crushing hug. "We already see you as part of the family, Izuku. We'd be happy for you to be in it officially and be our grandson." When she let go of the hug, uncle, or I guess possible soon-to-be grandpa, Enji put a hand on my shoulder and simply smiled and nodded. Enji said you didn't even have to ask. I supported Tuya when he chose to take you in, and I will keep supporting him with his decision. I will also accept your decision on the training stuff, but if you ever wish for advice or to test an ability, just give me or Ray a call, and we'll arrange it so you don't see the two. They gave me an adoption form. Being heroes, they have authority to make emergency foster or adoptions. It's something all heroes can do. It's a required course in the Hero Academies in 2nd year. It is known that some years that are ahead of schedule get it pushed in a 1st year, so they get the emergency foster license then. It's rare it's ever used at that age, but not unheard of cases where rescued children become emotionally attached to the hero or hero student who saved them. I hugged the pair and thanked them. Well, I guess I have some guardians I need to ask important question to, so I will take my leave. And after some final pleasantries and goodbyes, I make my way back home, this time unimpeded. When I got home, they weren't back yet, so I decided to do something nice for them. I went into the kitchen and started cooking them a meal. I made an akujiga, but knowing Rumi was a vegetarian, I did what I have done a few times in the past. After making the baseline sauce of the stew, I separated a portion out for her and added more vegetables in hers to make a vegan akujiga. I was nearly done making the dinner when they came home. They looked a bit banged up, obviously had a hard villain fight, either together or separate. I don't know, but it will be on the Hero News later. So I'll have a look. Dinner will be ready in 5 minutes, so if you want to clean up, it'll bring it to the table for you. While they're cleaning up, I fill in my details on the adoption form. It's a large form, so I don't have time to do everything, so it's just my name, age, date of birth, stuff like that, and slip it into an envelope and address the envelope to both Tuya and Rumi with a little personal note. I had written these last 3 years. Eve felt more cared for and loved than I have my entire life. You rescued me from a life of torture, and I couldn't be more grateful. This past year, I've been seeing you both more and more as actual parents. So if you open the other papers, you will understand what I'm asking. Love, Izuku. I dished up everyone's food, and I cut up some tiger bread and placed it on a plate. I slipped the envelope under the bread to hide it as a surprise. Once everything was prepared, I took all the food to the table where Tuya and Rumi were waiting. They thanked me for the food, and we began to eat. When we were halfway through our food, Rumi noticed the envelope. I'll be honest, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. What if they say no? What if they reject me because they planning to start their own family with their own kids? While they read the letter and then opened the forms, I watched. With bated breath, suddenly faster than I could see, Rumi was on me, hugging me. Tuya was just staring at the form, a tear forming in his eye. Atuya, you okay? He nods and says, yeah, I'm just happy. I was hoping you would ask one day. He looks at me with a smile. I make a split-second decision and say, well, you have been my mom and dad for the past 3 years and have cared for me and looked after me for even longer. This just made Rumi hug me tighter. ACH, are you mom can't breath? My voice was slightly strangled, but it was enough for her to loosen her grip, just enough for me to be able to breath again. Once she had released the hug, we all went back to eating our food. How she didn't knock anything over in her blur of movement to hug me is beyond me. When we finished eating, I took the dishes into the kitchen. I was about to start washing them when two dads stopped me and told me that it is turn for the dishes and you moms turn to dry them and put them away. It was the way we did things. One cooks, one washes the dishes, and one dries and puts them away. I did offer to do it all today and let them process everything, but he just responded with rules are rules. So I went and sat in the living room, and when they were finished, we watched a few movies. However, while you mom was deciding on her pick, two dad asked me an important question, if I wanted to change my surname to Todorokis after they had adopted. Sorry, two dad. Sorry, it'll take me a few days to break that habit. Sorry, but I need to do some stuff before I'm ready for that. I'll probably be ready after the wedding. Which BTW would you pick a date? Already you both have been engaged for months. Don't you think you should pick a date? Tuya said, we will eventually, and we understand. And don't worry, I'm pretty sure that you will get to prove your point and everything very early into UA. And that's how we spent the rest of that night. Watching movies as a family. The next day at school was hard. I was avoiding Kyo. I wasn't mad, sad, upset with her or anything like that. I just wanted to talk to Toshi before I confessed my feeling to her. And I know if I see her, that's exactly what I'll do. She nearly cornered me a few times too. If it wasn't for my enhanced hearing, she would have too. When the end of the school came around, I rushed out the school. Suspiciously, I didn't get even a hair of where Kyo was, but I didn't have time for that. I ran to the cafe I was meeting Toshi at. He was already there, not surprising when coffee was involved. He was at a corner table. He already had his coffee too, probably a black coffee with 2 or 3 shots of espresso, if I know Toshi like I think I do. He had a cat on his lap. I recognize it too. That cat had more or less claimed Toshi as his human. The cat was a jet black Bombay cat called Shadow. I ordered my coffee, a mocha, with a shot of espresso and a dash of cinnamon. Blame Uncle Sho. He made me at once, and I got hooked. I went and sat across from Toshi. What was so important? I rolled my eyes playfully at this. Trust Toshi to skip the pleasantries and cut to the chase. Why, hello to you too, Toshi. He responded simply with a smirk. Well, as I'm sure you are aware, I have feeling for Kyoka. Toshi choked on his drink at that. A bit late to just call them feeling or a little crush. Izuka said, okay, that's fair. But I want to confess to her, but I'm scared she will reject me and it'll ruin what we have. Toshi just deadpanned at me. You're joking, right? Like, tell me you're not serious? Even you can't be that dense. The look I gave him showed I wasn't joking. Dude, imagine if me and Kyo blushed all the time around each other and danced around each other. What would you assume? I think for a moment and say that you both liked each other. Toshi said, okay, so you're not dense, you're just oblivious. If you flip the script and swap me with you, that's what I see. Izuka said, are you sure? I really don't want. I never got to finish as my lips were assaulted by the taste of blackberry. When I slowed down my thoughts and looked at the situation I was in, I realized. Intinally said, OMG, Kyoka's kissing me. I'm not kissing her back, what am I doing? When I realized this, I was about to reciprocate the kiss, but she pulled away from me. Toshi smiled and said that we should probably talk and that he will take his leave. Izuku said, Kyo, what are you doing here? Kyoka said, I followed you after you avoided me all day. She sounded pretty annoyed at me too. Izuku said, I'm sorry. I wanted to talk to Toshi before I said anything. Kyoka said, hey, dumbass. I feel the same way, you know? My feeling for you are the same. I like you. Or, as Toshi more or less said, like isn't a strong enough word anymore. Izuku said, so, does that mean you would like to go out with me? I blush heavily while saying this. But she doesn't respond. She just kissed me again. This time I reciprocated the kiss, relishing the taste of balkberries this time. When we broke off, I say, I'll take that as a yes. She smiled her baleful smile at me, then asked, what brought this change, though? What made you want to confess? Izuku said, don't freak out, but I realized yesterday, during an enlightening conversation with my dear old sister, that other than training, I never do anything for myself. So I decided that there was two things I was going to do to be a bit selfish. This was the second. She sat there processing everything for a few moments. Kyoka said, 1. Why did you talk to her? I mean, I don't know details, but I know you hate her. 2. What was so enlightening? 3. What was the other selfish thing? Izuku said, 1. I had to stop her and the asshole from doing something that could kill them or others. It's not their fault. It was only thanks to my research skills that I figured it out, the consequences of the actions they would make. 2. Turns out, me nearly dying and leaving made the Todorokis sister stop using her fire, and the Bakugo sister has been trying to find less volatile uses for her quirk. I've told Enji and Rei to train the twins again and make the sister realize that holding in her quirk will result in mental health problems. It's why quirk usage is allowed in licensed places and homes. And lastly, I finally asked Tuya and Rumi to adopt me, or I guess I should call them mom and dad. She didn't even think. She squealed in delight and hugged me. Should have expected that. She's been telling me to just ask them. When she broke the hug, she finally stopped to process the rest of what I said. What were they going to do? Izuku said, I'm sorry, Kyo, I can't tell you. Not because I don't want to, but it's a sworn secret I'm not allowed to tell anyone. It's not my secret to tell. She nodded in understanding, not wanting to push the subject. So we stayed and made this our first official date. Meanwhile, in the HSBC building. Narrator POV. We see Tashinori in his All Might form and Inko in her psionic persona in the government database for the unknown time. They're trying to find out Izuku's address, and if he has one, Quirk. They've been trying for years. They want to rectify things with him. And they seem to think the only way to do so is to bring him home. However, since Izuku had changed his name, Izuku Yagi no longer exists. But now they have his new surname, Shimura. They are currently trying to get into his files. Keyword is trying. His files are locked with a password. When they tried asking the president for the password, they were told no, since she didn't know it. All the president knew was it was Endeavor, Principal Nizu and Recovery Girl, who locked it. The only hint given? Izuku's future hero name? But only a handful of people know that. So after trying some of the names he used to mention as a child, they were forced to give up. Or rather, they were going to grill Endeavor to get the password. They would go to Recovery Girl, but M is terrified of her after his injury, and Nizu would simply play games with them. They knew it was a long shot on Enji giving them the password, but of the three, he was the least worrisome. Little did they know Endeavor wouldn't give them the answer. Izuku's became more focused on his elemental training when he wasn't training with his newfound parents or Erase Your Head. He was able to maintain the lightning on his legs and hands long enough to strike, and has mastered his aerokinesis into his fighting style. He can use the air to speed up his attacks, or speed and maneuverability, and if he focuses, he can use it to float, but he finds flight easier with fire. He can send air blasts now, too, and if he focuses, he can combine two elements for a more powerful strike. If he uses all his energy in one attack, he can combine all his elements, but it drains his stamina. He also had found when using his embodiment forms, his pyrokinesis and cryokinesis is less taxing, and he becomes completely immune to the element he is encased in. He has got minor usage of his water now, too, is very minimal. He can only turn his fingers into water and use them as whips or lassos for capture or maneuverability. But he has found he can use that to make his knees, or kicks, even more powerful. His physical strength grew too. He can now lift up to 60 tons before he starts to struggle. If he pushes himself, he could lift 65 tons, but he destroys his muscles and has to wait about 2 minutes for them to regenerate. Shota Aizawa had taken his son out on patrol with him. Hitoshi isn't allowed to fight or use his quirk. It's simply to give him more practice traversing with his capture scarf and parkour on rooftops. Hitoshi is now able to move like Izuku could when he was 10. The only difference? Hitoshi has a bit more fluidity to his movements, thanks to his practice with his scarf. Kyoka has been practicing her flight and sparring with Izuku and Hitoshi quirklessly. Her logic? Is she's trying to swap her jacks between her legs, throat, or arms. She's also been practicing using her sound waves from her feet to add more power to her knee attacks. Along with training, the three have been studying together. Izuku has even been teaching them the fundamentals of quirk analyzing. They aren't very good at it, but even the fundamentals could help change the tides of a battle. After the last year, they all had grown a fair amount. Hitoshi was a 5'9.5" with muscles that were hidden in such a compact state. Kyoka was now 5'5". Her muscles weren't as defined as the others, but her quirk made up for her shortcoming in physical power. And Izuku was now 6'4". He was the buffest of the three with very defined muscles. Thanks to his healing factor, whenever he tears his muscles, they regrow in seconds. The trio's quirk rank breakdown. Ranks can grow with training. Kyokujiro, quirk set earphone jack. Quirk's growth, high B. Combat potential, low B. Scouting, low A. Traversal, mid B. Versatility, mid B. Quirk potential, B. Overall rank, high B. Hitoshi Aizawa, quirk set brainwashing. Controllability, low A. Combat potential, high C. Needs to learn how to trigger responses without endangering others. Scouting, low B. Prerequisite of controlling villain required. Traversal, F. Versatility, F. Quirk potential, high, able to end fights before they begin. Overall rank, high C or low B. Izuku Shimura, quirk said physical element. Quirk growth, S. Combat potential, high SS. Scouting, mid to high A. Traversal, S. Versatility, S. Quirk potential, SS. Overall rank, S. All that training and studying until the day came of the entrance exam came. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.